Chapter 1. Oh, 17 years, 17 years. Do you know how I have been through these 17 years? Natsume was lying by the river, mumbling incoherently with a dogtail grass in her mouth. Natsume Tsukimi, whose real name was Suyuejian, was a 5 youth of the 21st century. She died suddenly in the examination room after pulling all-nighters for 5 consecutive nights in preparation for the finals week. Fortunately, there is always a way out. After her death, Yujian traveled to another world, and it was a standard transmigration. Her mother died during childbirth when Tsukimi was born, and her father disappeared into the mountains while out hunting not long after, leaving only the surname Natsume Tsukimi. Fortunately, Yuejian's parents had a good relationship with the folks and were very helpful to them. The folks helped each other to raise Yuejian. Besides, Yuejian had been a human being in 2 lives, so her cleverness since she was a child made the folks love her very much. But the bad thing is that Yujian has no idea what world she has traveled to. The only thing she knows is that the background is a country where people live a good life. In the past 17 years, Yujian has not activated any system, nor has she discovered any monsters. She has searched through all the boxes and cabinets at home but has not found a copy of the Book of Friends. Not to mention special abilities, cultivation systems, weapons that possess special powers, and all kinds of strange props. How sad and lamentable. Oh, God, you have allowed me to travel through time, so are you going to let me waste my life like this? Yujian spat out the dogtail grass in her mouth, pointed her index finger at the sky and roared. Forget it, let's go back to the village. Maybe one day the system will awaken on its own. After saying that, Yuejian slowly walked back to the village, her back looking desolate and lonely. Before reaching the village, Yuejian discovered that there were many strangers standing at the entrance of the village. This aroused Yuejian's interest, as it was impossible for so many strangers to come to the village on ordinary days. Not long after, Yujian came to the entrance of the village. Yujian looked at the person who came in carefully. He had a brown goatee, purple spiral eyes, 2 horns on his head, and a red eyeball between his eyebrows that looked like a mole if you didn't look closely. He wore a white hood, a red scarf, and held a black staff. Yujian looked at the people coming, and the more she looked, the more familiar they looked. Until she saw the circle of eyes of the leader, Yujian was shocked, thinking to herself, isn't this the Rinnegan? Oh my god, this is the Sage of 6 Paths, so this is the Hokage. Tsukimi is a little excited at this moment. After all, Hokage is her favorite anime in her previous life. If she can choose freely, the Hokage world can almost be regarded as the best solution for Tsukimi. Logically speaking, this should be the period when Sage of 6 Paths promotes the ninja sect. It seems that the method of refining chakra has been found. As for whether or not to follow Sage of 6 Paths to travel around the world and finally settle down in the ninja sect, Tsukimi is not considered at all. Some people may ask, that's the Sage of 6 Paths, you can definitely learn a lot from him. Just kidding, by the time the 2 sons of 6 Paths branch out to the branch house, I'm afraid that the aftermath of any big move will be enough to kill Yuejian, a fragile little guy. It would be better for her to master the chakra refining method, strengthen her body and be free in the village. Anyway, the main storyline of Hokage is still more than 1,000 years away. Even if I live to death, I won't reach that time. Why do I have to keep trying to get there? Thinking about it, Yujian collapsed. Yes, there are still more than 1,000 years before the main story of Hokage. Can she live to that time? Yujian couldn't help but curse the heavens again. It would be better to travel through time and space in loneliness. My name is 6 Paths. I come here today to atone my sins and spread the idea of a euro peace. As he spoke, Sage of 6 Paths attached chakra to his arm and easily uprooted a tree nearby that required 5 people to hug it. At this time, the villagers at the entrance of the village were stunned, and they immediately knelt down and exclaimed that they were immortals. He knelt on the ground, not sure whether he was afraid or devout, thinking it was a miracle. After all, the era in which Yujian lived was not much different from the feudal society in China at that time, and he still believed in ghosts and gods. Looking around, apart from the followers of Sage of 6 Paths, only Yujian was standing there like a crane among chickens. Although Sage of 6 Paths can now crush Yumi to death with just one finger, Yumi still cannot kneel down. On the one hand, it was because Yujian knew that the Sage of 6 Paths was trying to atone for the sins her mother had committed, and they would not fight with her whether she knelt or not. Besides, the Sage of 6 Paths did not show this move to make these ordinary people kneel, but to prove that the chakra refining method was effective. On the other hand, Yujian is a soul that traveled through time from Great China, and the Chinese blood runs in her bones. Even if she dies, she will never kneel down to someone who lives a good life. The Sage of 6 Paths glanced at Yuejian, quite surprised, but did not say anything. As the followers helped everyone up, the Sage of 6 Paths began to formally explain what chakra is and how to refine chakra. 3 days passed quietly. During these 3 days, Sage of 6 Paths had already taught the chakra extraction method completely, and in the process, it had promoted a lot of peaceful ideas. However, Tsukimi scoffed at these ideas. Holding the script in her hand, she naturally knew that when the various families mastered ninjutsu in the future, it would be no exaggeration to say that the chaos of the Warring States period would be filled with corpses, not to mention the Ninja World War, which was even more bloody. Soon Sage of 6 Paths and his companions prepared to leave. A small number of villagers were impressed by 6 Paths' ideas and hoped to follow him. At this time, Yujian had returned to the stream where he often stayed and continued to refine chakra. That's right, it only took Tsukimi one day to become familiar with the chakra refining method, and she successfully refined the chakra the next day. If Tsukimi only needs to continue to exercise and further improve the chakra refining method, her chakra will naturally grow as she gets older. Coming back to her senses, Yujian remembered that today seemed to be the last day of her 17 years, and she would be 18 tomorrow. Before she knew it, Yujian had been in this world for nearly 18 years. At this moment, Yujian felt that she was sorry for all her fellow time travelers. Other time travelers either have all kinds of cheats or have all kinds of innate conditions, such as the son of the emperor or the grandfather who is always by your side. Unfortunately, the only thing Yujian can see is that he can quickly master the chakra refining method. He can be called a chakra refining genius, but what's the use of this? So far, Sage of Six Paths has not married or had children, let alone Indra inventing ninjutsu. By that time, Tsukimi would probably be almost 30 years old. Without ninjutsu, this chakra is of no use other than strengthening the body. Thinking of this, Yuejian punched the small tree next to her 3 times. Forget it, I don't want to think about it anymore, let's go back to the village. After saying that, Yuejian walked back to the village step by step, feeling helpless in her heart. I'm back. Yuejian said as she walked into the house. The house was left to Yuejian by her parents. There was no bloody plot of bullies occupying the house. Yuejian was quite grateful about this. After all, Yuejian couldn't even walk at that time, and she didn't have an old cow that could understand human nature. If someone wanted to occupy the house, Yuejian could only wave her hands and let them do as they pleased. After making a simple meal, Yuejian prepared to go to sleep. The meal was not very delicious. There were no various seasonings, only salt. With Yuejian's cooking skills, she really couldn't make any delicious food. The only thing worth praising was that all the food was pure natural and tasted fragrant. The sun sets and the night gradually spreads, like a drop of ink dropped into water, gradually blurring everything. Although the crowing of chickens and barking of dogs have died down, Yuejian still can't sleep. His heart is filled with confusion. Even if you live to be 100 years old, it can be said to be a long life. But he still couldn't survive the main storyline of Hokage. Thinking of this, Tsukimi laughed at herself. I'm afraid I'm the most embarrassing Hokage time traveler. I can't participate in the main story after traveling through time. When I think about how regretful I was when I watched the anime, I couldn't make up for the various tragedies in the original work. It's really a waste of time to travel through time. The more Natsume thought about it, the more upset and confused he felt, and the more he couldn't sleep. Before he knew it, the moon was high in the sky and time had quietly come to 12 o'clock. At this time, our Natsume Tsukimi turned 18. Ding, host is detected to be over 18 years old, longevity system activated. Chapter 2. Ding, host is detected to be over 18 years old, longevity system activated. System? Is it you, system? 18 years, I have been waiting for you for 18 years, and finally you have come. Do you know how I have been spending these 18 years? Why didn't you come earlier? At this time, Yuejian sat up directly from the bed and kept covering her ears with her fingers, fearing that she was hallucinating or had hysteria. Ding, this system will only start when the host is 18 years old. The system has no right to modify the start time. Well, it's okay, as long as you come back old, just tell me what abilities you have. Yuejian was almost crying as she spoke. Who could understand this feeling of happiness of risking one's life to survive? Finally Yuejian stood at the same starting line with all her fellow time travelers. Ding, this system is called the longevity system, and it has 3 main functions. First, this system grants the host immortality, and his appearance will always be frozen in the present moment. Second, the host will automatically increase 1 card of chakra every day, there is no upper limit, and today's chakra has been received. Third, if the host changes the tragic fate of the original character, he will receive relevant rewards. The rewards will be distributed in stages, every 25%. After hearing this, Yuejian's eyes sparkled, and at the same time, a warm current surged out of her body and rushed straight to her brain. It seemed that the 1 card had come. After recovering from the shock, Yuejian said, then my brother has just turned 18, my brother is always 18 years old. And the second one is pretty cool too, it increases 1 calorie of chakra every day, so why should I refine chakra, I can just wait for it to increase automatically. The third one is a bit more powerful. In the Hokage world, simply piling up chakra was no longer useful by the Aoi Satsuki era, and the third rule was to solve the problem of the combat power ceiling, turning quantitative change into qualitative change. Besides, Yuejian has traveled through time, so she will naturally not let the tragedy of the original work happen again, otherwise what is the sense of participation? Jiraiya, Minato, Itachi, and the rest, all live. Those who have read the original novel know that Kakashi lacks a blue warrior and will be very weak without using a few skills. But that's because the Sharingan, a blue consuming giant, was always open. It was already very strong that Kakashi didn't get sucked to death. In the comics, Kakashi said that Naruto's chakra was 4 times his own, which shows that Kakashi's chakra is not small at all. Many Nin can't reach this level. Of course, if you include the chakra leaked by Nine Tails, it's a different story, which is almost 100 cards. Tsukimi roughly calculated in her mind that Nine Tails chakra is about 10,000 chimes, and 1 chime is equal to 4 calories, so Nine Tails chakra is 40,000 calories. If this continues for about 110 years, my chakra will be equivalent to 9 tails. By the Warring States period, Tsukimi's chakra will probably be as much as 10 9 tails. Thinking of this, Yuejian took a deep breath and made a contribution to global warming. Invincible, ha 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 ha, cough cough cough. While laughing, Yuejian was choked by her saliva and almost became the first time traveler to be choked to death by her own saliva. After calming down, Yuejian began to ask the system, Brother Tongzi, what is my method of longevity? Ding, the host's longevity is due to the infinite vitality of the cells. There is no such thing as a cell lifespan, but the host's self-healing ability is still the same as that of an ordinary person. The host currently has no other advantages except for being able to live a long time. Ha 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 ha, Yuejian scratched her head awkwardly. Don't say that, but since the life of cells is infinite, I can try to solve the tragedy of Hashirama severing his ties and see if I can obtain the sage body. With my inhuman self-healing ability and my infinite cell division, I'll see who can kill me. Yuejian couldn't sleep at all when she thought of this, so she sat up and organized her thoughts. Since I have already been immortal, I must not continue to live in the village. The time period is not a problem. After a long time, the villagers will definitely think something when they see that my appearance has not changed. We'll have to leave sooner or later anyway, so we might as well leave early. Say goodbye to the village chief tomorrow morning and say you are going to follow the ninja clan. Then, find some secluded place in the mountains and old forests to practice. Yuejian rubbed his head as he spoke. The next step is to consider developing ninjutsu. I don't think I can develop any ninjutsu with my current abilities, so I'll just develop the raise nan. Thanks to Kishimoto for drawing how to practice the raise nan. For example, the Great Fireball, where a small mouth spits out fire, how can I practice it under these conditions? Then we need to think about how to get a sage body, but this can only be achieved after Hashirama is born. For now, we should consider how to use chakra to stimulate the body's repair ability. In the end, just stay alive and don't come out until you are invincible. Once you have enough chakra, you can develop superpowers. It should be pretty easy then. As I was thinking, daybreak came. Yujian put on his clothes and walked out of the house. He had walked this road countless times over the past decade. At the end of the road was the village chief's house. Stated the purpose of the visit. The village chief tried to persuade her a few times but to no avail, so he said, "You have grown up under my watch. Since you have made up your mind, I have nothing to say. Take these food. If you feel tired, come back to the village. The village will always be your home." As he said that, the village chief went back to the house and got some dry food and dried meat. It was very difficult to eat meat in this era, and one had to go hunting in the mountains. However, the mountains were full of dangers and all kinds of wild beasts. Yuejian's father was buried in the mountains and his body was not found. These dried meats might be all the meat reserves of the village chief's family. Yujian refused to accept them. She just took some dry food symbolically and asked the village chief to give them to whoever needed them in the village in his house, and then set off. On the way, Yujian kept recalling the plot of the original work. First of all, the best way to improve her combat power was to have multiple shadow clone. By then, the number of clones that her chakra could support would be absolutely terrifying. With more clones, my cultivation speed will definitely increase exponentially. Besides, I really need the ninjutsu of impure world reincarnation. If I can kill my relatives and friends, I can even summon their spirits to chat with them. Thinking of this, I made a decision in my heart. Senju Tobirama, you, the white-haired guy, can't run away. At this time, it was still more than 1,400 years since Senju Tobirama was born. Tobirama would never believe that he had been targeted more than 1,000 years ago. However, there is no such thing as a map in the Hokage world at this time, and Yuejian is currently thinking about reaching the vicinity of the future Konoha Village. After all, the best chance to come into contact with Madara and Hashirama is when the two of them are playing water skiing. Now that we have found Hashirama, how far can white hair be? Then Tsukimi considered that in the future, the Senju clan and the Uchiha clan would be clans differentiated from the Sons of the Six Paths. That being the case, the current location of the ninja clan must have a certain relationship with the future location of the two families. If the two families were not close to each other, how could they fight to the death every day? In this way, Yuejian inquired about the whereabouts of the ninja clan while slowly moving forward. A few months later, Yuejian had caught up with the main force of the shinobi clan, which was already stationed here. Yuejian looked carefully at the surrounding environment, which was full of trees, mountains, and water. She was roughly sure that this was the future land of fire. After Yuejian recorded Genjutsu's location, she left. Yuejian knew that there would be another battle between the two sons of Sage of Six Paths in the future. At that time, Xiaomu's own strength was not enough to protect himself. They could only settle down in a faraway place first, and wait until Indra and Ashura died, when no one in this world could threaten them. Soon after, Yuejian came to a waterfall. Yuejian thought that if she was right, this was the valley of the end, so she said to herself, "This will be my home from now on." Chapter 3. More than 10 years passed in a flash, and then a huge silver dragon was seen galloping down from the mountains, its force like thousands of troops, unstoppable. The water surged violently, hitting the rocks below with the force of thunder, and immediately splashed water everywhere like broken jade flying flowers. There was a huge rock standing above the waterfall, and a young man was sitting on it with his legs dangling in the air. His long black hair fluttered in the wind, and he was wearing a starched, slightly whitish heiori, which further highlighted his otherworldly aura. The young man was Natsume Tsukimi. He was looking at a village at the end of his sight. That was a village that was slowly formed after the Sage of Six Paths settled down. Yuejian has been bored for more than 10 years. She can only communicate with others occasionally when she goes to the village to buy things. The rest of the time she is alone and lonely. It's not that Yuejian doesn't want to talk to people, but he can't accept the pain of separation from life and death. However, when he thought that Nine Tails also had eternal life, he was suddenly moved. Now that Nine Tails has been separated for decades, there must be legends about Nine Tails in the market, so if you go looking for it this way you won't be flying around in confusion. During the past decade or so, Yuejian has not been idle at all. Not only has he developed superpowers, but he has also mastered the method of rapid cell growth. Most importantly, he stole a scroll of summoning from the Book of Ninja while the Sage of Six Paths was not at home. Other ninjutsu are of little value to Tsukimi, and she will have the opportunity to learn them in the future, but summoning techniques are the only thing that Tsukimi needs most right now. After learning this ninjutsu, Tsukimi was able to establish a connection with the Nine Tails. As for sealing Nine Tails in the body, that's just a joke. Not to mention that Yumi doesn't know the sealing techniques, even if she did, Yumi doesn't plan to seal Nine Tails. After all, a fox should have its own freedom. Back then, Fox was beaten up by Madara while sleeping, and then he was controlled by Sharingan and drove a Gundam and was beaten up by Hashirama, so he decided to try his luck in the land of fire. With that, Tsukimi began her aimless journey. It stands to reason that tailed beasts don't like to be disturbed when they are sleeping, so we should look for them in places with few people, so we should look for them in valleys where there are few people. Foxes in valleys sleep comfortably. Yuejian did not go looking for it deliberately. Instead, she walked and stopped like a traveler, and from time to time she would shout out when she saw injustice. As she walked, she would ask if there were any ghost legends in the local area, especially those about foxes. As a result, all along the way, I only heard about a jade-faced scholar saving a wounded little white fox, a white fox transforming into a human, a holy monk suppressing a white fox under the temple in anger, and shouting about humans and demons having different paths. Natsume Yuejian was so annoyed that she said, what is this otherworldly a Chinese ghost story and flooding Jinshan? The temple should just be called Jinshan Temple. Just like that, she listened to the ridiculous legends and searched for the traces of Nine Tails all the way. Occasionally, she would live in the villages she passed by for 4 or 5 years. 200 years later, Yuejian finally heard some decent news in a restaurant. As for why it took so long, it was because Yuejian was a person with poor sense of direction and she often went around in circles. Hey, brother, have you heard? People in the mountain next door say that my cousin Tanaka from the neighboring village went to the back mountain to collect herbs to treat his mother's illness. The back mountain? How dare he? Isn't it said that there are monsters in the back mountain? If Tanaka is not afraid of never coming back, who will take care of his mother? Oh, that's right. But there's nothing Tanaka can do. His mother has a strange disease, and the doctor insists that only the 1,000-year-old ginseng in the mountains can save her. In my opinion, this doctor can't cure Mrs. Tanaka's illness at all. He said he wanted 1,000-year-old ginseng from the back mountain because he was afraid of losing face. What's the difference between the ginseng from the back mountain and ginseng from other places? Who knows? Poor Tanaka, I'm afraid he will be eaten by the monster in the back mountain. My dear friends, I'm treating you to a meal. Can you please tell me what's going on with this monster in the back mountain? The two middle-aged men who had just been talking at the table saw a handsome young man sitting over. When they heard that the young man wanted to treat them, they immediately smiled and their favorability towards Yujian increased sharply. In addition, there were no entertainment facilities in that era, and talking about 8 trigrams was one of the few ways for people to pass the time. So the two of them enthusiastically told Yujian about the situation of the old monster in the back mountain. Young man, you are from another place, right? This back mountain is not the mountain behind the village. When you look south from outside the restaurant, the highest mountain you see is the back mountain we are talking about. With normal walking speed, it will take at least 10 days or half a month to reach this mountain. Yes, yes. Speaking of the monster in the back mountain, I heard it existed 200 or 300 years ago. It seems to be a giant fox. Yes, yes. I heard that the fox is orange in color and will cruelly eat all humans who come up the mountain. When Yujian heard this, she had an idea in her mind. The so-called big monster in the back mountain was most likely Nine Tails. Plus, the timing also matches, which is exactly when the Sage of Six Paths sends out the nine-tailed beasts. Thank you, brothers. I haven't heard such an interesting legend in a long time. After saying that, Yuejian threw a handful of copper coins on the table. At this time, copper coins had already appeared in the ninja world as a currency, but they were not universally used in various places. It was not until the late Warring States period that the currency was unified. Hey, young man. Although I don't know whether this story is true or not, I advise you not to run to the back mountain. There are so many terrifying wild animals in the mountain. If you are not careful, your life will be in danger. Thank you, brother. I have something in mind. With a destination in mind, Yujian quickened her pace, rising and falling on the branches, and arrived at the so-called back mountain in less than half a day. At this time, Yujian used her perception to the maximum and could clearly feel that there was a huge source of chakra behind the mountain. Then Yuejian killed a few wild boars nearby and soon reached the top of the mountain with the wild boars. Looking into the valley, she saw a huge fox sleeping soundly in the valley. Seeing Nine Tails sleeping so happily, Yujian also smiled slightly. Freedom is indeed priceless at any time. Because Natsume Tsukimi's control over her own chakra has reached an outrageous level, not a single bit of chakra has leaked out. Just kidding, if it's a pig, if you let it train for decades, it will become famous. Of course, Yujian couldn't just go up to Nine Tails and say, "Hey, red-haired old man, my will-o'-the-wisp has stopped outside the valley, do you want to follow me?" If she did, Nine Tails would probably slap her down with her claws. So Yuejian began her plan to trap the fox. She quickly dug a few holes on the top of the mountain and found some dead branches nearby. Twist your fingers to create a spark. Yuejian doesn't have the fire style, but she can still create a flame with her fire attribute chakra. I need to insert a sentence here. Over the past few decades, Yujian has mastered the nature changes of the 5 chakras, but has not yet felt the yin-yang chakra. Because chakra test strips have not been invented yet, there is no way to measure accurately, but Yuejian can guess that he has all 5 normal chakra attributes, except yin and yang. It's normal to think about it. After all, I don't have any secret techniques like shadow imitation, or some special bloodline limits. Yuejian flicked her finger and flames fell on the dead branches. When the fire was almost burned out, Yuejian put the wild boar on the fire and started to roast it. Soon the pork was roasted to a golden color, and drops of lard fell on the flame, stirring up bursts of green smoke. Yuejian waved her hand and a pile of spices were evenly spread on the barbecue, completely bringing out the aroma. It's a pity that Nine Tails is nestled in the valley and you can't smell the fragrance from the top of the mountain at all. But who is Natsume Yuejian? He was seen holding his right wrist with his left hand, and a light blue ball of light slowly appeared in his right hand. What? It's the raised nan. What is he going to do? Is he going to use the raised nan to give Nine Tails a wake-up call? No, that's not it. Genius, Yuejian is indeed a genius. He placed the raised nan close to the pork, and the smoke was sucked in by the raised nan. After a while, Yuejian murmured, this chakra amount should be about the same. However, at this time, Tsukimi's raised nan could only be considered a semi-finished product, because without the ball, the last step could not be successful, and the raised nan was very unstable. After saying that, Yumi threw the raised nan towards Nine Tails. Just as the raised nan was about to hit Nine Tails, the raised nan, whose chakra was exhausted, dissipated. While sleeping, Nine Tails felt a breeze on his face, which brought with it a fragrance that he had not smelled for a long time. Chapter 4. Nine Tails' black nose twitched constantly, with the amplitude getting stronger and stronger. Nine Tails, who was sleeping soundly, dreamed that a bunch of delicious food was queuing up to jump into his mouth. Nine Tails, who was dreaming, grinned and the corners of his mouth rose higher and higher. Suddenly Nine Tails opened its eyes. It noticed that the delicious food seemed to be all around it. It looked left and right for the source of the fragrance. Soon it saw the curling smoke from the top of the mountain and the thin human on the top of the mountain. Ninetales was a little confused, because humans don't have such a scent, so he glanced to the side and found a few wild boars being roasted on the fire. Ninetales sniffed carefully and found that the fragrance came from the wild boars. Yearn saw that Ninetales had discovered her, so she shouted, "Would you like some, fox?" At this time, Ninetales couldn't tell the person's background, but Ninetales, who had the ability to sense malicious intent, did not sense any malicious intent from Yearn, and even vaguely sensed a sense of kindness. This surprised Ninetales a little, because ordinary people would jump up and down in fear when they saw him. This human was not only not afraid, but also exuded kindness. Ninetales was sure that he had never seen this human before, so he couldn't tell where this kindness came from. Yearn saw that Ninetales noticed her, pointed at the meat she was grilling and said with a smile, "Eat it, it's freshly grilled." "Human, aren't you afraid of me?" "Why should I be afraid of you? You are just a slightly bigger fox. What is there to be afraid of?" "Ha ha ha ha, kid, I kind of like you." When Ninetales heard Yearn's words, he was not angry, but a little happy. After the Sage of Six Paths sealed their mother on the moon, they divided the remaining power of 10 tails into 9-tailed beasts. This is the origin of the 10-tailed beasts. After the 9-tailed beasts were separated, the Sage of Six Paths told them to be kind to others. The tailed beasts were quite respectful to the Sage of Six Paths and took the old man's words to heart. However, due to their huge size, humans are terrified by the tailed beasts. Even though the tailed beasts have never actively harmed humans, the fear of the huge monsters ingrained in their bones still makes people stay away from the tailed beasts. Tsukimi actually felt sorry for Ninetales. The reason why Hashirama sealed Ninetales was that the power Ninetales possessed was too terrifying. In order to prevent Ninetales from harming humans, he had to seal Ninetales. He never considered whether Ninetales had ever harmed humans. This reason is really ridiculous. Ninetales was controlled and beaten, and then sealed again. It would be strange if he had no ill will towards humans. After saying that, Ninetales stood up and stretched, then laid on the top of the hill with its front paws raised. Its huge fox head stared blankly at the barbecue, slurping its saliva from time to time, just like a starving dog. "Hey, kid, is this what you humans call barbecue? You actually know about barbecue?" "Nonsense, when Six Paths first sent me to the human world, I quite liked going to human villages. But because humans were too afraid of me, they all ran away when they saw me. At that time, some humans were roasting meat on the fire. When they were chatting, they said it seemed like barbecue. It's a pity that there are too few, not even enough for me to fill my teeth. In order to avoid human panic, I had to sleep in this valley all day. Later, I tried to roast some prey myself, but it always seemed to lack some flavor." Yearn laughed and said, "Try this and see if it tastes like the barbecue you ate back then." Yearn handed Ninetales a whole wild boar. Ninetales opened and closed its mouth, and the whole wild boar disappeared. As Ninetales chewed, its eyes opened wider and brighter. Yearn looked at the eyeballs in front of her that were much bigger than her own body, and was suddenly speechless. "That's the taste, kid. Your cooking skills are pretty good. By the way, I haven't introduced myself yet. I just said some weird words and I'm afraid you don't understand them. A kid like you probably doesn't know the Sage of Six Paths, let alone my identity." After saying this, Ninetales revealed a strange expression, 3 parts pride, 3 parts nostalgia, and 4 parts sadness. Yearn couldn't figure out how Ninetales managed to show such a complex expression with a fox face. This expression is enough for some of the current young actors to learn for a few years. If possible, Yearn even wanted to include this expression in the teaching materials of Beijing Film Academy. At this time, Yearn also showed a nostalgic expression, Sage of Six Paths. "By the way, my chakra refining technique was taught by Sage of Six Paths himself. Little boy, I didn't expect that you are so small but you can talk nonsense. The old man of Six Paths is so old now. Could it be that you have been learning chakra refinement in your mother's womb?" Ninetales curled his lips and continued, "You might be a descendant of some ninja sect, so it's not surprising that you know this old man. Why, you don't believe it, Kurama." Yearn smiled at Ninetales. When Ninetales heard this, his pupils shrank to the size of a needle. He stared at Yearn and said, "How do you know this name? Except for the Sage of Six Paths, no other human knows this name. Not only do I know your name is Kurama, I also know the names of the other 8-tailed beasts. How about I read them to you one by one? Little devil, who are you? Alright, stop calling me a brat. I have a name, Natsume Tsukimi. As for how I know that, didn't I tell you that the Six Paths Master taught me the chakra refinement method himself? He told me your names. To be honest, I am the Six Paths Master's last disciple. Little ghost, do you think I'm so easy to deceive? The main thing is that you wouldn't believe me even if I told you that I am actually an immortal. I have a special physique and my lifespan is forever frozen at the age of 18. As he said that, Yearn took out a scroll, which was stolen from the Sage of Six Paths. On it was the ritual of spiritualism. No, look, this is the scroll of spiritualism written by the old man himself. He gave it to me personally before I left for the trip, and he saw how amazing I was and accepted me as his last disciple. If you don't believe me, take a look. As for the last disciple, only Yearn dared to say it, and Ninetales dared to believe it. So Sage of Six Paths only accepts 1 disciple per month, and no more in the future? Ninetales has not yet witnessed how despicable humans are. Although he has doubts about Yearn's words, he can't find any faults in them. Ninetales took a look and found that it was indeed the old man's handwriting. Although Linghyu found it hard to accept what Yearn said, he still believed it a little bit because there was a scroll to back it up. Hey, I know you don't really believe it now, Kurama. Anyway, I have nothing to do, so I will stay with you in this valley until you believe it. This silky smooth combo made Ninetales dazed and he nodded. Blankly. Chapter 5. The cold wind blew gently on the cliff, and a tall and straight young man stood quietly. A brown-red fox was lying on his shoulder, which looked particularly eye-catching in this quiet world. The young man had a distant gaze, with a hint of depth in his eyes that was inconsistent with his age, as he looked towards the well-organized village in the distance. The curling smoke from the village slowly dissipated in the air, and ninjas in kimono were constantly moving around. The boy and the fox are none other than Natsume Tsukimi and Nine Tails, and over the decades Tsukimi has mastered the 5 chakra nature changes as well as the development of various raised nan. After developing a ninjutsu that can shrink the body, Nine Tails just eats and sleeps. During this long period of time, Natsume Tsukimi and Kurama have become very familiar with each other. Tsukimi told Nine Tails everything that might happen in the ninja world in the future, and Tsukimi also signed a summoning contract with Nine Tails. For Kurama now, Tsukimi's position in his heart is even higher than that of Sage of Six Paths. After all, Sage of Six Paths was born but not raised, while Tsukimi has always been with it. Ujian, will the two sons of Sage of Six Paths really break up? Sage of Six Paths was too idealistic, believing that Chakra was the link between the heart, and always felt that true peace came through communication, and his second son Ashura completely inherited his ideas. In comparison, I actually agree more with my eldest son Indra's opinion. Peace is achieved through fighting. Indra was originally a good child, but he was led astray by a dark thing and completely ignored the power of communication. It's a pity that Sage of Six Paths didn't know that his eldest son was bewitched. He always felt that his son had followed his mother's old path. To be honest, it would have been better if the two of them could communicate with each other earlier. Ah, Black Zetsu. Nine Tails sighed and continued, do you think we can defeat him if we join forces now? It's pointless, Kurama. That guy is so slippery that even if I can beat him, immune to death. Since immune to death is meaningless. Okay Kurama, help me wash this piece of clothing. I'm going to find a wild boar and borrow some things. After saying that, Ujian took off her heroine and threw it to Nine Tails. She was wearing a combat suit made of some unknown animal skin. After a few jumps, she disappeared from Nine Tails' sight. Nine Tails was speechless for a moment. Only Ujian could think of letting a fox do the laundry. What Ujian wanted to borrow from the wild boar was none other than the bladder. That's right, the bladder. Earlier, Yumi was troubled by the lack of balloons when practicing raised nan. In addition, with the current productivity, it would take hundreds of years to make finished rubber, let alone balloons. Therefore, over the past decade, Ujian has given top priority to the project of using supernatural powers and chakra to stimulate cell regeneration. Her efforts have paid off, and over the past decade, Ujian has successfully developed the method of supernatural powers and cell regeneration. At that time, Tsukimi's second-year soul was burning fiercely and she gave the latter a name called Lingzi Huan Shang Hushan Fa, which made Nine Tails laugh at her for 3 years. More than 10 years may seem like a long time, but for Tsukimi it is like building a towering building from the ground up. Without any ninjutsu for reference, it is already an exaggeration for him to have developed these two ninjutsu. The cell regeneration method stimulates stem cells through chakra, allowing them to divide and differentiate rapidly, thereby achieving the effect of healing wounds in a shorter period of time. Although it is not as perverted as Hashirama's sage body, it is enough for Tsukimi at the moment. Even if the heart is pierced, it can recover to its original state within 5 minutes. After the two ninjutsu were developed, Tsukimi kept thinking about how to make rubber. From time to time, she would rub Nine Tails' fox face and ask, Kurama, do you know how to make rubber? What a joke, Nine Tails is just a fox that is a little special, how could he know how rubber is made? Until recently, Ujian brought back a wild boar from hunting. During the dissection process, she cut off the wild boar's bladder. When she was about to throw it away, she said, I don't know how the ancients could do it. They used this thing as a contraceptive and it's not dirty. Rubber ones are better. Suddenly Ujian had an idea and held his head and said, wait, bladder? Rubber? Bladder. Rubber. Ha 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 ha. I got it. Master Deo, I got it. Nine Tails next to her was so scared that she thought Ujian was possessed by evil spirits. Ujian was seen holding the pig bladder, not caring whether it was dirty or not, and rushed to the stream and said, Kurama, roast the hind leg of this wild boar for our dinner tonight, and let the rest air dry. I have something urgent to do, so I'll be back soon. After he finished speaking, Ujian had disappeared, leaving Nine Tails, who was confused, slowly dealing with the wild boar. Back to the topic, Uejian, who had just finished talking with Nine Tails, found a wild boar after a few ups and downs. The black hair was covered on its body like steel needles. Uejian thought that after the Sage of Six Paths returned chakra to the world, many animals had undergone mutations. Maybe this wild boar could be used as a summoning animal after a while. Hey, monster, I need you to help me practice. Uejian jumped towards the wild boar and punched the pig's head from top to bottom with extraordinary force. Before the wild boar could react, the pig's head seemed to be wrapped in a tremendous force and hit the ground straight on. The solid ground seemed like fragile thin paper and was torn apart in an instant by this unrivaled force. With the landing point as the center, cracks of unknown depth and varying widths quickly spread out in all directions like a spider web. Ujian looked at her masterpiece and smiled, we're done. After waiting for the wild boar to bleed almost all the way, Tsukimi carried the wild boar back to the waterfall, and after a simple preparation, she gave the food to Nine Tails to cook. She then filled the pig's bladder with water, tied it tightly with a rope, and began to practice raised nan. For Tsukimi, raised nan is the most suitable ninjutsu for her. After all, Tsukimi doesn't even know the 12 seals now, and it is impossible for her to go to the ninja sect to seek advice. Currently, Tsukimi avoids the Sage of Six Paths like the plague, for fear that the Sage of Six Paths will think she is an unstable factor and send her to the moon to accompany Kaguya. Therefore, raised nan, a ninjutsu that does not require hand seals or even consideration of chakra attributes, is perfect for Tsukimi who has no basic knowledge. Moreover, the subsequent addition of wind attribute chakra property changes and fire attribute chakra property changes can be advanced on the basis of ordinary balls. Didn't you see that the prince in later generations also made magnet-style balls? Days passed one by one, and after achieving immortality, Ujian became extremely insensitive to the passage of time. Before he knew it, Six Paths had become an old man hunched over in bed. During these years, the two sons of Sage of Six Paths had a fierce fight, and Tsukimi could see the purple Susanoo and the Shinju from a long distance. That battle was a lot of noise but little action. Apart from the chakra ball thrown by Indra which almost hit Uegian, there were no other casualties. And now Sage of Six Paths is almost at the end of his life. Last night, Indra went to see Six Paths boss and made some harsh remarks. It is estimated that Six Paths will no longer exist in this world by noon today. Of course, the Pure Land does not count. As Uegian was thinking, she heard crying coming from the ninja clan. It seemed that the Sage of Six Paths had indeed passed away. At this time, Uegian felt a sense of relief all over his body. The pressure put on him by Sage of Six Paths was indeed great. What's more, Sage of Six Paths also had the existence of Gamamaru, who could know fragments of the future even in dreams. It was truly a terrifying ability. Now that the Sage of Six Paths has passed away, Uegian can finally relax a little. In the past, he was really afraid that the Sage of Six Paths would discover him and crush him to death. After all, Tsukimi's current combat power is far from that of the Six Paths, and now that the Sage of Six Paths is gone, his two sons won't be far away either, and until Aoi Satsuki strikes, no one will be able to threaten him. Uegian thought about the beautiful days in the future and became happier. She went home with a smile on her face. Chapter 6. On the top of the mountains, the biting mountain wind was blowing the boy's graying feather robe wildly. His figure was as straight as a pine tree, and although his face looked young, his eyes were full of experience. Her inky black hair was tied behind her head, with a few strands fluttering in the wind, adding a touch of unruly. On the boy's shoulder, a fiery red nine-tails fox lay steadily. The fox's fur was bright and eye-catching, like a burning sunset, and its nine tails were fluffy and soft, with slightly curled tips, like lively flames dancing in the wind. The millennium has come, welcome the return of the Dragon King. The young man raised his head slightly, looked at the distant horizon and said lightly. Hey Uegian, stop being crazy and leave now. I can't wait any longer. For a long time, Uegian was not satisfied with the simple summoning function of the summoning technique, so the man and the beast adapted the summoning technique, combined with the characteristics of Jinchuriki, and added unique effects on the basis of the summoning technique. Firstly, while ensuring that the foundation of spiritualism remains unchanged, two sealing valves are added to the contract, one of which is on Ninetails and the other is on the contract scroll. Ninetails chakra can be transmitted through these two valves, which is equivalent to an external version of Jinchuriki. The final effect is that those who sign the Ninetails spiritual contract can not only summon Ninetails to fight, but also mobilize Ninetails chakra. Tsukimi originally wanted to change the version into one that can transfer her own chakra. After all, her own chakra amount is now 10 times that of Ninetails. But unfortunately, summoning techniques can only be used on ninja beasts, and subsequent research can only be done by referring to reverse summoning techniques. Even so, Natsume Uegian has often visited the Uzumaki clan in recent years, secretly looking through their sealing techniques, under the pretext of learning from them. Now that Ninetails knows his tragic fate, he is very grateful to Tsukimi for bringing him out of the ravine. If he continued to sleep there, he would have been attacked by Uchiha Madara one day. After signing a contract with Ninetails, Uegian found that the reward progress of Ninetails had been stuck at 24%. Uegian asked the system what was going on. The system tells them that Ninetails' tragic fate started with Uchiha Madara, so they must establish a bond with Uchiha Madara to unlock the remaining 1%. However, Tsukimi is not in a hurry. She will be able to meet Uchiha Madara soon. It is a pleasure to look forward to the reward during this period of time. Look how anxious you are, but we are not in a hurry to find those two guys, Madara and Hashirama. Let's go find a place to get some gold and silver coins first. What are you looking for these things for? Oh, don't worry about it. I have my own uses. With these words, the man and the fox left the Valley of the End, and they didn't know when they would meet again in the future. Soon the human-animal combination found a gold exchange place. Uegian looked at the heads on the bounty list, and found that they were basically the patriarchs of major families. Uegian, is this gold exchange offering such a high-profile reward for the head of the family patriarch? Aren't you afraid of being wiped out by them? Do you think just anyone can open this money exchange? I'm sure there must be a big family behind it. Besides, those clan leaders are like crazy people. They are not happy with the low bounty and have to find ways to increase it. A few years ago, the psychopathic clan leader of the Huayuruaki clan thought his bounty was too low and increased it by 20 million ryo. As expected of a clan of psychopaths. Tsukimi had naturally told Ninetails the story of the Uryuaki clan, who had a cowardly ally, the Hyga clan. The Uryuaki clan and the Take Torai clan are actually the same clan, both referring to Kaimamaro's clan, but they are called two different names just because of different translations. The Uryuaki clan and the Hyga clan were both descended from Aoi Satsuki Hamura, another son of Aoi Satsuki. They were all one family, so their relationship was particularly close during the Warring States period. However, the Hyga clan was too weak and only knew how to defend during the Warring States period. As a result, the Hyga clan became notorious on the battlefield, but was basically isolated and helpless. It can be said that the Hyga clan was basically of no help to the Hyga Uryuaki clan. In addition, the members of the Huay Uryuaki clan are all crazy. They are so excited about fighting on the battlefield that they don't care about anyone else. Not long ago, they beat the Senjo clan and the Uchiha clan at the same time. So the two major families joined forces for the first time to drive the Huay Uryuaki clan to the Water Kingdom. During this process, the Hyga clan did not send a single member to help, not even the branch house members, which showed the clan elders' cowardice to the extreme. Sir, are you buying or selling something or accepting a reward? The clerk at the counter looked at the strange appearance of Natsume and Ninetails and couldn't figure out their background, so he could only ask carefully. The money exchange office can be said to be an underground black market, where it is common for blacks to rob blacks. Store clerks will occasionally kill some bounty hunters who embezzle the rewards. After all, the lives of people in the Warring States period were not valuable. For the clerk to be able to stay on the job for such a long time, he must have some vision. Even though Uegian looks young, his intuition still tells him not to take action. Come and exchange it for some gold and silver, and you'll see how much this thing is worth. Yuejian took out a ginseng from his sleeve. There was no medical ninjutsu at the moment, let alone a groundbreaking ninjutsu like the Sage Jutsu. It can be said that the Sage Jutsu developed by Tsunade reduced the death rate of Konoha ninjas by more than half, and ninjas with minor injuries could quickly return to battle after simple treatment. This was one of the reasons why Konoha was able to go to war with 3 countries at the same time in the later period. Therefore, when a genin heals his wounds, he still needs a variety of herbs, and medicinal herbs are hard currency. 1000-year-old mountain ginseng, very well preserved, very fresh, it seems you just picked it not long ago. I'll give you a fair price of 60 taels, what do you think? That's reasonable. How about this? You just give me 50 taels of gold and 50 taels of silver, and I'll process them into floating stones. The extra money will be your tip. Natsume nodded and said. Sir, please don't joke. If you want to skip stones, I can find you a pile of stones. The clerk said, wiping the non-existent cold sweat. Just do it this way, how long can you give it to me? Right away, right away. Sir, please wait a moment. Soon, Natsume came out of the gold exchange with the gold and silver in the water, and said to Nine Tails, Kurama, are you interested in being a river god? River god? Kurama had naturally heard the story of the river god told by Tsukimi, and he agreed excitedly. Then the two of them found out the location of the future Hokage rock and rushed over. Soon Yuejian found the location of the future Hokage rock. After all, the bare cliff was too conspicuous in the forest. Now that the Hokage rock was found, the river where Hashirama and Madara usually skipped stones could naturally be determined. Tsukimi and Nine Tails built a small wooden house far away from the river, and the man and the beast practiced in the house. Nine Tails' perception is much stronger than Tsukimi's, so on weekdays he relies on Nine Tails to determine whether Uchiha Madara and Senju Hashirama have come to the river, and the rest of his energy is naturally used to continue practicing. Chapter 7. A few days later, Natsume saw a child with a black hedgehog head and wearing a dark blue kimono, holding a stone by the river and throwing it into the water. The stone bounced on the water surface a few times, and just when it was about to reach the other side, it lost its momentum and slowly sank into the river. The hedgehog-headed boy sighed slowly, as if he was upset that the stone did not successfully reach the other side. Suddenly, another stone flew past the hedgehog-headed boy, bounced quickly on the water several times, and then reached the other side. The hedgehog-haired boy turned around suddenly and saw a child of the same age looking at him with a smile. The short black hair covered the forehead neatly like a watermelon rind. He was wearing a light grey scarf wrapped around his neck, which made him look very warm. The two people were Uchiha Madara and Senju Hashirama. After a brief self-introduction, Madara attributed his failure in skipping stones to Hashirama standing behind him. Just as he finished saying that he couldn't have someone standing behind him even when he urinated, the surface of the river suddenly exploded. I saw dark red chakras in the river forming a lotus throne, on which sat a young man wearing a feather robe and looking ethereal. Around his neck was a fox with closed eyes, and its 9 tails floated in the air, making the young man look even more mysterious. At this time, the young man opened his hands, and in the palms of his hands lay 2 floating stones, but one was gold and the other was silver. Slowly the young man opened his eyes and said to Madara, Young man, was it this golden boulder that you dropped into the water? Or was it this silver boulder? At this time, one of 9 tails' tails grew longer in the wind and quickly fished out the boulder that Madara had just dropped from the river and placed it in front of Yuejian. Or is it just this ordinary floating stone? After saying this, Natsume Yuejian remained silent and looked at the 2 people in front of him quietly. Madara and Hashirama had never seen such a scene when they were teenagers. The level of chakra manipulation displayed by the Chakra Lotus throne was beyond the reach of even their own father. The 2 kids swallowed and exchanged glances before Madara said, What I dropped was an ordinary floating stone. As soon as he finished speaking, Yuejian stepped on the lotus seat and suddenly appeared in front of Madara. He placed the 3 floating stones in Madara's palm and said, Honest boy, as a reward for your honesty, the 3 floating stones are all yours. The speed was so fast that the 2 little ones had no time to react. After they came to their senses, Madara asked carefully, Excuse me, who are you? Natsume waved her hand, and the chakra on the water surface suddenly dispersed, turning into cherry blossom petals floating in the air and moving with the wind. At this time, Nine Tails closed his eyes and curled his lips, thinking, Pretend. After years of influence, Nine Tails' brain has been filled with too much knowledge that does not belong to this world. I am the god of this river. Madara and Hashirama were stunned for a moment as they looked at the cherry blossoms flying all over the sky. He asked blankly, Are you really the river god? Tsukimi laughed and said, Just kidding, my name is Natsume Tsukimi, and this is my partner in summoning beast Kurama. At this time, the 2 were still very wary of Tsukimi, but they knew that they were no match for Natsume Tsukimi in strength, and this place was remote, and no one could save them even if they screamed at the top of their lungs, so they simply followed Tsukimi's wishes and started chatting. My name is Hashirama, but it's not convenient to say my last name. My name is Madara, and it's not convenient to tell you my last name either. I understand, I understand. You 2 are family ninjas, right? I can understand that. The 2 kids exchanged glances while Yujian was talking and decided to ask Yujian some questions first. Excuse me, are you also a ninja from the family? But I don't think I have ever heard of the last name Natsume. Madara asked. I am not a ninja from a certain family. I am just a traveler. As for the name Natsume, it is a gentle name, but now there is only one Natsume in the world. Is that so? Sorry. Did your family also die in the war? Hashirama spoke up at this time. He thought that what Tsukimi meant was that all her relatives and friends died in the war. After all, this was commonplace in the warring states period. Natsume gave Hashirama a thumbs up in his heart. He was worrying about how to bring the topic to the war, and then talk about their 2 people's peace concepts, so as to resonate with the 2 people and meet them more frequently. After they are familiar with each other, I will slowly teach them and correct their distorted ideas influenced by Indra and Ashura Chakra. Even later on, the white-haired Tobirama, the black-haired Izuna, and the black and white-haired Idama were all brought over. Yes, war. The endless wars took away all my relatives. After burying my relatives, I began to travel around the world. There were flames of war everywhere, and corpses were everywhere. Even children had to pick up knives and go to the battlefield. They should have been innocent at an age when they had to fight strangers on a bloody battlefield. If they were not careful, they would lose their lives. Yu Jian's words silenced the two children. They both knew how cruel war was. The various ninja families fought endlessly with each other for resources, territory, and living space. For example, the Senju clan and the Uchiha clan, these two powerful families have been in a state of hostility for a long time, and the war has made both sides pay a huge price. In the original work, the 5 brothers of Senju Hashirama, Itama, and Kawurama, and the Uchiha brothers Madara, except Madara, all died in the war. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to mention your sad story. At this time, Hashirama said in a slightly low voice. Now, Hashirama has not felt the pain of the death of his relatives, but the fact that his family's children went to fight on the battlefield at an early age has made him yearn for peace. Uchiha Madara is different. Now he and Izuna are the only ones left out of the 5 brothers. But Tsukimi is very curious as to why Madara's Sharingan didn't show any movement when the other 3 brothers died, but instead opened the 2 Megatama in anger when severing the bond with Hashirama. Yu Jian said that she really didn't quite understand. Let's not talk about these depressing topics. I have been traveling around these years, looking for a path to peace, and also giving some explanation to my relatives. Peace? Can peace really be achieved? Will there really be a world where people trust and respect each other, without deception and fighting? Hashirama asked Tsukimi excitedly. Let me tell you this, young man. What you call peace is simply impossible to achieve, or it is very difficult to achieve. Yu Jian thought of her previous life. Even though technology was very advanced and at least normal life was not a problem, wars were still frequent all over the world. But even if there are thousands of difficulties and dangers, the ideal of pursuing peace is worthy of recognition and respect. Yu Jian looked at the two children and continued, peace is never negotiated at the negotiation table. Peace can only be won with your own hands. Without strength, how can you make the enemy sit down at the negotiation table with you willingly? Strong military force is the guarantee of peace. Madara's eyes lit up after hearing this. Young Uchiha Madara also had a strong desire for peace, but the two children had very different concepts. Hashirama places great emphasis on trust and bonds between people. He believes this emotional connection can resolve conflicts. So he hopes to build a village where all families can cooperate and depend on each other. He hoped to eliminate the fighting and hatred between families in this way. And Uchiha Madara believes that peace can only be achieved with absolute power. In the future, he witnessed the war and cruelty in the ninja world, and increasingly believed that human nature is difficult to change and fighting is inevitable. Madara has a pessimistic view on human nature. He thinks people are always pursuing profit and power and that wars are caused by human greed and selfishness. Unlike Hashirama's optimistic trust, Madara does not believe that people can achieve peace through bonds and cooperation with each other. In his opinion, even if a temporary cooperative relationship is established, it will break down due to the temptation of interests or old hatred. Even after being persuaded by Hashirama to establish Konoha together, he still broke with Hashirama because of Tobirama's words. In my opinion, the achievement of peace is a phased process. The first phase is to end the state of war. At present, the hatred between families is too deep to be resolved with simple words. To end the conflict, it must be suppressed by strong force. Next comes the second stage, which is preliminary peace. Through the use of force, all parties are forced to sit down for negotiations and jointly discuss a peace system that everyone can accept. As for the subsequent stages, let's implement the first 2 stages first. The two children, who were very confused about the path to peace, suddenly understood a lot more after listening to Yuejian's ideas. There is a general direction on how to pursue peace. Yu Jian felt somewhat relieved when looking at the two of them, thankful that the two children were still young and their thoughts were not so extreme, so it would not be so difficult to educate them. After organizing their thoughts, the two children bowed to Yuejian and said, "Thank you, Natsume-sama, for your guidance." Chapter 8. You two don't have to be polite. I'm just expressing my superficial opinions, which are not worthy of public display. Senju Hashirama and Uchiha Madara shook their heads firmly. Yuejian smiled helplessly, forget it, leave it to you, but now we know each other, you don't have to call me Natsume brother, it's quite formal, just call me Yuejian brother. Okay, brother Tsukimi. At this time, Hashirama and Madara grinned at each other. They were not only happy to meet an adult like Tsukimi who did not ridicule their ideas, but also felt that they did not feel lonely having a peer who was like a confidant and a friend. In that case, we can meet here when we have time, discuss with each other, and work together to achieve peace. As for me, I am a few years older than you, so I can give you some guidance on some ninjutsu techniques. After hearing Tsukimi's words, the two children were very moved. You know, ninjutsu and taijutsu were so precious during the Warring States period. After all, even the sons of clan leaders like Hashirama and Madara didn't have much ninjutsu to learn. In the original work, the two of them continued to develop new ninjutsu while competing and communicating. Thank you, brother Yuejian. The two children bowed again, and this time Yuejian calmly accepted the thanks from the two children. Just when the three wanted to communicate for a while longer, Yuejian saw a corpse floating on the river, with the emblem of the feathered clan engraved on the armor. This is going to become a battlefield soon. You two should leave now. Hashirama and Madara had no idea why Tsukimi said that. Just as they were about to ask, they spotted the body on the river. After saying goodbye, they left the river. After the two walked away, Yujian asked Nine Tails, Kurama, I always feel like I forgot something. How do I know what you forgot? Wait, I remember you told me that when Hashirama returned home after his first meeting with Madara, he found that his brother Kawurama had died in the battle. Tsukimi slapped his head and said, Hiss, it's been so long that I can't remember clearly. Now Kawurama is probably in the coffin. It's too late to save him even if we want to. But Itama will probably be surrounded and killed by the Uchiha clan tonight. In order to prevent the hatred between the two clans from further intensifying, we have to save this kid. Kurama, I'm asking you to work hard tonight. Turn your perception to the maximum and find Itama. Although Tsukimi has a huge amount of chakra, her perception ability and precision are much weaker than Nine Tails. After all, she has not systematically learned perception ninjutsu. Leave it to me. Nine Tails smiled knowingly. Soon the long night came. The man and the fox who were eating barbecue took the last bite of the barbecue. Yumi gathered the water attribute chakra to form a water ball, which extinguished the bonfire that had not yet burned out. At this time, Nine Tails opened his eyes and said, "We found Uegian. About 5 kilometers to the northwest, there is a yang attribute chakra source and several yin attribute chakra sources. The yang attribute chakra source is very small, about the size of a child of several years old. We have to hurry over there. If we delay any longer, this kid Itama will be finished." Ujian nodded, bent her legs slightly, and suddenly flew out like a cannonball, leaving a mess on the ground. At the same time, Itama was leaning against a huge rock, facing several grim-looking Uchiha people. The knife in his hand was shaking. The moment Itama looked up, he saw a pair of strange eyes, which were a pair of 3 Magatama Sharingan. Itama knew that the Uchiha tribe members who possessed the 3 Magatama Sharingan were not someone he could resist at all. So he despaired, and his panic-stricken expression completely collapsed. Snot and tears flowed out uncontrollably, and Banjian didn't know what he was thinking. Maybe he was thinking about the tragic death of Wajian, or maybe he was thinking about his brother's teachings, but who knows. It is impossible for the Uchiha people to let Itama go just because he is crying. This is a war, not a game of house. The leading Uchiha nodded, announcing Itama's fate, and various ninja tools stabbed at Itama at the same time. At this moment, a sound of breaking air was heard. The Uchiha people stopped what they were doing and gathered together to be on guard around them. Suddenly, a human-shaped object hit the stone that Banjian was leaning against, and the stone immediately broke into pieces. Banjian was knocked to the ground by the force. "Hey, you guys are still up in the middle of the night, bullying underage kids. Listen to my advice and go back to sleep. Look at your eyes, they are all red. Don't stay up here late." Tsukimi's words made the Uchiha people want to complain, but they didn't know where to start. "May I ask who you are? Do you want to make an enemy of our Uchiha clan?" asked the leading Uchiha. "It doesn't matter who I am. What matters is that I will protect this kid today. As for becoming an enemy of your Uchiha clan, even your clan leader wouldn't dare to say that in front of me." After hearing Tsukimi's words, the Uchiha members present were shocked and suspicious. However, the Uchiha clan was such a proud clan, how could they just withdraw like that? Out of a probing mentality, the leading Uchiha tribe member spits a great fireball at Tsukimi. But he found that the person in front of him could disperse the fireball with just a slap, and his pupils shrank a little. "This little flame is not even good enough to grill meat for me. Do you guys still want to continue attacking me? We, the Uchiha clan, will remember what you did today. See you later." After saying this, several Uchiha people turned around and left. At this time, Senju Itama got up from the ground, wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and said, "Thank you for saving my life. Please come with me back to the Senju tribe to accept my gratitude. And with the Senju tribe here, I'm sure the Uchiha tribe won't dare to attack you." Tsukimi looked at Banjian and thought that there must be something wrong with this kid. "Didn't you see that they killed the son of the clan leader without mercy? Why do you think that Uchiha will not kill me? Come on kid, just remember that I saved your life, and when I need you, don't refuse." "Yes, sir. As long as it does not conflict with my principles, I will do my best to help you. Then you leave by yourself. I won't see you off." As soon as the words fell, Ujian flashed back into the woods. Just when Ujian had taken a few steps, the system reminder sounded suddenly. Ding, the system has detected that the fate of the Senju board has been completely modified, and the host will be rewarded with a resurrection coin. Ujian was not too surprised. He guessed that he should be able to get a system reward for this action, but he did not expect that Banjian's fate was completely changed. He thought it was divided into stages. "System, will you reward 1 resurrection coin after a thorough revision?" Ding, after all, Banjian is not an important character in the original work, so I rewarded the host with a resurrection coin because the host completed the regrettable achievement for the first time. "Okay, thank you then." After Ujian finished speaking, she began to check the information of the resurrection coins. The prizes awarded by the system would have detailed descriptions on how to use them, but the resurrection coins were simple and crude. Keep the resurrection coin on you. If you die in battle, you will be automatically resurrected after 24 hours and restored to the state you were in 1 hour before your death. When Banjian returned to the Senju tribe's territory, he immediately attracted everyone's attention. Seeing Banjian covered in blood, everyone immediately surrounded him and asked him questions. The crowd did not disperse until the tribe leader arrived. The old patriarch brought Itama back to the house. At this time, Hashirama and Tobirama were already kneeling in the house, and they were very worried when they saw their younger brother covered in wounds. The old patriarch felt relieved to see that his 2 sons were very concerned about Banjian. He said, "There's nothing serious with the boardroom. Just rest for a few days and you'll be fine. Itama, tell me what happened. Was it the Uchiha who hurt you like this?" "My dear father, I was besieged by the Uchiha clan while on guard in the forest tonight. Just when I was about to die, a strange man saved me." "A strange person? Could it be that other families are going to intervene in the war?" "Don't spread this matter to anyone else, go back to sleep quickly," the old patriarch said seriously to the 3 children. Chapter 9. When Hashirama returned to the house, he felt that what happened today was unreal. His initial meeting with Natsume Tsukimi gave him a general idea of a how to achieve peace. He returned home happily and found that Kawurama had died on the battlefield. Not long after, his younger brother Itama almost died. What hurt him the most was that his father actually thought that Kawurama's death in battle was a kind of pride. At this time, Hashirama felt a little afraid of war. War is like a meat grinder, constantly taking people's lives. Not only do adults have no idea of a ending the war, but they send their children to the battlefield, seeing it as a sign of growing up. This series of events made Hashirama unable to help but pound the ground with his fists, gritting his teeth and saying, "I must end this damn war." Tobirama, who lived next door, listened to his brother's noise and stared at the ceiling, not knowing what he was thinking. The next morning, Yearn got up early to grill fish. At this time, Ninetales jumped onto Yearn's shoulder and said, Yearn, normally you are very reluctant to interfere with the movements of the ninja world, so why did you save that kid Itama yesterday? Yearn turned the grilled fish over and said, Kurama, the ninja world before was a strange place to me. I found that I couldn't fit in at all. I could only watch the development of the ninja world like a spectator. And the ninja world today is the ninja world I am familiar with. Since I have the ability to change the tragedy, I will naturally change it, at least to prevent the tragedy from happening again in front of me. Ninetales nodded. A long time ago, Natsume Tsukimi tricked it into saying that it had traveled from the future and that a huge disaster would happen in the ninja world in the near future. All mankind gathered all their chakras, borrowed the power of the dragon veins, and sent Yearn to the past, looking for hope to change their fate. Ninetales believed it to be true, even though it was made up by Yearn. Just as the grilled fish was finished, Hashirama and Madara arrived at the river one after another. You two came quite early. Come and try the fish I grilled myself. It tastes amazing. Yearn handed over 2 pieces of fish on the charcoal. The two of them didn't hesitate, they sat on the ground and started to chew, their eyes lit up more and more, they shouted in unison, not for sale. If you like to eat, eat more. Only when you are full will you be in the mood to practice. Soon the 3 men and the fox swallowed all the fish. After wiping their mouths, Yearn said to Hashirama, What's wrong, Hashirama? Why do you seem to be in such a low mood? Madara also looked at Hashirama at this time. He had already noticed that Hashirama was in a bad mood while eating fish, but he didn't know how to start the conversation. Just last night, my younger brother Kawurama died in the battle, and my other younger brother Itama almost died on the battlefield. After saying this, Hashirama became even more depressed, and tears slowly flowed down his face. There are 5 brothers in my family. Madara said at this time, we are ninjas, and we don't know when we will die. If there is any way to ensure that we will not die, we can only be honest with the enemy and not hide anything from each other, and become sworn brothers, but this is impossible. Because human hearts are hard to predict, no one can see through the hearts of others. Maybe the other person is actually burning with anger. Madara stood up, grabbed a stone and threw it into the river. Is it really impossible to be honest with each other? Hashirama asked with his head lowered. I don't know, but I often think about it, hoping to find a way. At this time, the stone successfully hit the other side. Madara said, after listening to what brother Yearn said yesterday, I think I seem to have finally found the right direction this time. Not only you, I also threw it over there. Hashirama was deeply touched, as he was not the only silly kid who wanted to change this war. It seems that both of you have found your own direction. Then you just need to stick to that belief and keep getting stronger. I believe you two can end this war. Yearn said, rubbing the 2 children's heads. Since you two are so enthusiastic, I will teach you a ninjutsu that I developed myself. Do you two want to learn it? Naturally, Hashirama and Madara nodded repeatedly. Then watch carefully, this ninjutsu is called Raise Nan. As she said this, Tsukimi condensed a chakra ball in her hand. The translucent blue color like crystal instantly attracted the attention of the 2 children. Tsukimi casually threw the Raise Nan at the giant tree, and instantly the giant tree was cut in half by the Raise Nan. I'll give you a brief introduction to the training points, and you guys try to get a feel for it first. Not long after, Yearn told the 2 of them the Raise Nan training method and then jumped onto a tree to catch up on her sleep. The Raise Nan is an amazing ninjutsu even in later generations, and it was even more amazing in the Warring States period. The 2 children were amazed at the power of the Raise Nan. They didn't expect that such a small chakra ball could burst out with such amazing power, and it could release a lot of extra operating space without the need for hand seals. The 2 were even more certain that Natsume Tsukimi was definitely extraordinary. Not only does he have an extraordinary understanding of peace, but his ninjutsu and strength are also unpredictable. So while Hashirama and Madara exchange experiences during training, they are also considering taking Tsukimi as their disciple. Brother Tsukimi's ninjutsu is so powerful. It doesn't require any chakra attributes and it's so powerful. Hashirama exclaimed. Brother Tsukimi must be a genius to have developed this kind of ninjutsu. In terms of power alone, there are few ninjutsu in our family that can compare to it. I can feel that as long as chakra is continuously injected, the power of this ninjutsu will be even greater. Madara exclaimed. Madara, what do you think, should we take brother Yearn as our master? Hashirama, I didn't expect that you, who are so unsophisticated, could come up with some good suggestions. Why don't we wait for brother Yearn to wake up and talk to him about this matter? Hashirama nodded gradually, but what he was thinking was, am I really that unsophisticated? Not long after, the 2 saw Yearn wake up, and immediately went up to him and said, Brother Yearn, we too want to become your disciples, and hope you can accept us. After hearing what the 2 said, Yearn was a little surprised, but there was no reason to refuse, so she agreed to their request. Since you two are already my disciples, I naturally cannot hide anything from you. Kurama, say hello to these 2 guys. After hearing Yearn's words, Ninetales jumped down from Yearn's neck while sleeping. Little boy, since you have become Yearn's apprentices, come to me if you encounter any problems in the future. I will protect you. Ninetales said this with a guilty conscience. After all, in the near future, the 2 of them would be able to use him as a chicken to beat, so at least it would be okay to help them now. Besides, both of them have become Yearn's apprentices, so Madara shouldn't attack him again. If he needs a mount, I will take him to find 8 tails. Hashirama and Madara were a little surprised to hear Ninetales speak. Fox, the fox actually spoke. Shut up, stupid kid. My name is Kurama. If you call me the wrong name again, I will eat both of you. The 2 of them hurriedly apologized, but they kept covering their mouths and laughing, but what they were thinking in their hearts was, Master's pet is quite magical, it can even talk. But it may not be big, but it has a big temper. Any ninja can kill such a small one. It wants to eat us. Ninetales felt that the 2 children were plotting against him, but after hearing Tsukimi's story of pretending to be a pig and eating a tiger, Ninetales fell in love with the feeling at that time. He developed the ninjutsu that makes the body smaller so that he could try it himself one day. Ninetales thought, you two little brats, laugh for a while you can. When your dad catches you and takes you back, you'll know how powerful your Uncle Ninetales is. Ahem, time is limited so let's start training. From now on, Kurama will be responsible for teaching you the Raise Nan. Since you have all accepted me as your master, I will teach you a new taijutsu called the Strange Power. Chapter 10. Master, you are kidding. Kurama taught us Raise Nan. Hashirama and Madara knew that Ninetales was not an ordinary fox. After all, they had never seen a fox whose tail could grow bigger and longer. However, the two did not think that Ninetales was that powerful. Moreover, the Raise Nan, a ninjutsu, required an extremely high level of chakra control, and how high could the level of chakra control of ninja beasts be? Hey, you two little brats, what do you mean? Don't you trust me? If I use all my strength, one claw of mine will turn both of you into meat paste. Ninetales said to the two children with bared teeth. Don't worry you two. After all, the Raise Nan is a ninjutsu that was inspired by Kurama. I'll show you the original Raise Nan when I get a chance. Natsume said. The original Raise Nan, isn't that the tailed beast ball? If we fire one at each of the two major family territories, the war can be ended early. We understand, master. Hashirama and Madara said. Ninjutsu is certainly important for ninjas, but physical skills should not be underestimated. From now on, I will be responsible for your physical skills. Today I will teach you a new physical skill. As he said this, Natsume walked to a huge rock, raised his hand and smashed the rock into powder, and even the ground cracked. This taijutsu is called Strange Strength. The principle is to use chakra to stimulate the muscles while attaching chakra to the hands or feet, and then strike out. Both of these ninjutsu will continue to increase in power as long as the amount of chakra is high enough, provided that you have good physical fitness. From today on, you two will practice Raise Nan in the morning, learn about supernatural powers at noon, and have free time to discuss in the afternoon. The two nodded and said in unison, yes, master. In this way, the two people spent a carefree time, without war, without death, and such a life made the two people more determined to yearn for peace. More than a month has passed, and both Hashirama and Madara have mastered the Raise Nan and super strength. The two of them did develop some ninjutsu during their daily exchanges, especially the three-body technique and the flickering technique proposed by Yearn. After all, the significance of the three-body technique is extraordinary. If the substitution technique is used well, it can be a life-saving skill. The combination of transformation and clone techniques makes the battle extremely diverse. For example, the cooperation between Sasuke and Naruto to rescue Kakashi from Zabuza's water prison is a good example. What's more, Yearn hopes that the two of them can develop the clone technique, so as to provide inspiration for Tobirama to develop the shadow clone technique or the multiple shadow clone technique in advance. As for the flickering technique, it is a great way to improve combat power. For example, the future Shisui and Konoha Whitefang are both masters of the Grandmaster flickering technique, and they have mastered the technique to a level that others cannot reach. Hashirama and Madara agreed with Tsukimi's idea very much. After completing the training of the two ninjutsu, they focused their energy on the three-body technique and the flickering body technique. However, the time was too short and the two of them only had some ideas. Today, when the two of them came to the river bank to greet Uchiha, Ninetales sensed a strange chakra approaching from a distance. So Tsukimi said hello to the two of them and left the river bank. It goes without saying that this person must be Tobirama. In order for Madara to open the Sharingan smoothly, Tsukimi must follow the original story here. After a while, a young figure appeared in the woods. The striking white hair was undoubtedly Tobirama. Tobirama watched his brother by the river, sometimes laughing and joking with another person, and sometimes practicing hard, and he became more certain that there was indeed something wrong with his brother recently. After all, Hashirama had not been home for more than a month. He had been practicing, and his face was always filled with a smile. This was very different from his usual behavior, and such a difference naturally aroused the vigilance of the Senjo clan leader. So he sent Tobirama to investigate what Hashirama was doing recently, and today's scene happened. With a kimono like this and long black hair that stands out, and the fact that he is the same age as my brother but has similar strength, the other person must be from Uchiha. I have to say that Tobirama is extremely smart. It's no wonder that he was able to develop so many forbidden techniques. He was able to determine Madara's approximate identity based on just this little information. He is really smart. After knowing the general information, Tobirama slowly left the woods. The same thing happened to Uchiha Izuna. After getting the information, Izuna also quickly left the woods and ran towards the Uchiha tribe. Before they knew it, it was afternoon. After a day of training, the two people sat on the edge of the cliff, enjoying the cool breeze. They felt the slight chill as if their tiredness was washed away by the breeze. You can overlook the entire forest from here, Hashirama said. You can see clearly even at such a far distance. By the way, do you want to compete in eyesight? You definitely can't beat me in eyesight. Madara said. It seems that you are very confident in your eyesight. Of course, I do have. Madara looked a little lonely as soon as he finished speaking. What's wrong? Asked Hashirama. No, after thinking about it, I'm not that powerful. If I were really that powerful, my brothers wouldn't have died. I couldn't even save them. I'm sorry, I seem to have mentioned your sad story. Are you the only one left among your brothers? No, I still have a younger brother, and I will protect him even if I die. I have decided as well. Let's build a village of our own here. Hashirama told Madara about his ideal. Only you can say such stupid things, but what you said doesn't seem bad. Madara said, looking into the distance. That's settled, then. Well, if it can really be built, I will definitely protect my brother. After saying that, the two of them smiled at each other. By the way, where is Mr. Tsukimi? I haven't seen him since I greeted him this morning. Hashirama scratched his head. I don't know. Teacher Yearn must have her own things to do. How could she be with us all the time? That's true. It's getting late today. Let's end the day by playing water splashing against each other. So two people stood on both sides of the river, threw out a stone at the same time, and then caught each other's stone at the same time. We can throw it to the other side. Hashirama said. Well, after all, this kind of stone is very suitable for skipping stones on water. See you tomorrow, Hashirama. After saying that, the two turned around and headed for their respective clan territories. Hashirama was holding a stone on his way home. The two became friends because of skipping stones on water. This stone had a different meaning for Hashirama. Just as Hashirama was staring at the stone in a daze, Tobirama blocked his way. It's Tobirama. What's the matter? Hashirama asked cheerfully. Brother, father has something to tell you. Tobirama said coldly. Not long after, the two arrived at the Senju tribe's territory. As expected, Tobirama informed the Senju tribe leader of the matter between Hashirama and Madara. The tribe leader then ordered Hashirama to find out information about Uchiha Madara, and that he would go with Tobirama to ambush Uchiha Madara the next day. Forced by his father's words and the hatred between the two clans, Hashirama had no choice but to agree to his father's request. After leaving the house, Hashirama took out the stone given to him by Madara from his arms. Unable to bear to see his friend die in front of him, Hashirama decided to tell Madara about this matter, even if he was from the Uchiha clan. Having made up his mind, Hashirama picked up the charcoal pencil and carefully wrote a string of words on the stone, then put it in his arms and fell asleep. Chapter 11. Early the next morning, Hashirama went to the small river where they usually met. When he arrived, he found Madara already standing on the other side of the river. Let's get started right away. Let's say hello by skipping stones on the water. After Madara said that, they both took out a stone from their pockets, and with a flick of their right hands, the two stones crossed on the water surface and went in opposite directions. The two stones were just like the fate of the two people who followed. After finally running towards each other, they missed each other after only a brief meeting, and then went their separate ways. The bond between Hashirama and Madara was extremely rare and precious during the Warring States period. As they were both sons of the patriarchs of two hostile families, it was inevitable for them to become enemies. However, both of them broke free from the constraints of their family, looked at the war from a higher platform, abandoned their prejudices against each other, and even though they could guess each other's identities, they still worked together for peace. In a flash, both of them steadily caught the stones thrown by each other, and stared at the stones at the same time and found bold black words on them. Take Teacher Uegian and run away. It's a trick. Tell Teacher Uegian to leave immediately. The pupils of both of them shrank, and Madara spoke first. Hashirama, I'm sorry, I have something else to do today and can't play with you. After saying that, Madara waved his hand and started to turn around. At this time, Hashirama also reacted and immediately said, Really? Then I will go back today. As soon as the words fell, the two of them immediately accelerated and began to run the way they came, while also constantly looking around in the hope of finding Uegian's trace. For the two people at this moment, the strongest person they have ever seen is their father. After all, they are the patriarchs of the two strongest families. If they are not strong enough, they will definitely not be able to sit firmly in this position. Uchiha Tajima has the Mangekyo Sharingan, so the Senju Fuma who can compete with him is naturally not that weak. Therefore, without knowing Ujian's true strength, both of them were afraid that Ujian would be injured or even killed if she faced her father. Just as the two were running away, four figures suddenly appeared on the river surface. They were none other than Senju Furuma and Senju Tobirama, as well as Uchiha Tajima and his son Uchiha Izuna. It seems that we have the same idea, Senju Butsuma. Uchiha Tajima half bent over, with his right hand tightly grasping the short sword hanging across his back. Izuna held the sword in his left hand and the scabbard in his right hand, his eyes fixed on Tobirama. Yes, Uchiha Tajima. Senju Fushima had a katana on his back and a shiny kunao in his hand. Tobirama was crouching beside him, carrying a katana longer than himself, ready to charge at Izuna at any moment. Senju Fuma and Uchiha Tajima have fought countless times, and they both know that under normal circumstances neither can do anything to the other, so both of them regard the other's son as their target. As long as the other's son is injured, they will inevitably reveal their flaws, and their chances of winning will inevitably increase. Just as a leaf slowly fell and created slight ripples on the water, the two people moved. Senju Fujian rushed forward like a ghost. The ghostly figure suddenly rushed forward, the extremely sharp kunao in his hand flashed with cold light, and stabbed straight at Uchiha Tajima. Uchiha Tajima was not to be outdone. He rushed forward like lightning, and the long sword in his hand was like a flash of light from the sky, whistling as he slashed towards Senju Buddha. There was a loud clang sound, and the two weapons collided fiercely, emitting dazzling sparks. Both sides tried their best in this attack, but neither could do anything to the other. After a brief stalemate, their eyes turned to each other's son at the same time. At this moment, Uchiha Tajima and Senju Fuma looked at each other, and jumped back at the same time as if they had telepathy. Then they pushed the ground hard with both feet, and their whole bodies leaped up like an arrow. They adjusted their postures in the air, swung their arms, and threw the weapons in their hands towards Izuna and Tobirama who were in a tense confrontation. The long sword and kunao turned into two meteors, cutting through the sky and flying towards the target rapidly with a sharp sound of wind. And what are Izuna and Tobirama doing at this moment? Oh, no one of them knows. They only have each other in their eyes. Their determination to make the other stay makes them ignore everything outside. Seeing their brother was about to be injured, Hashirama and Madara immediately turned around and threw stones at the kunao and short sword in the air. Just when Tobirama and Izuna thought they were going to die, the flying stones suddenly knocked the weapons down. With a ding sound, the weapons and stones fell into the water together. Hashirama and Madara quickly jumped in front of their brother and protected him behind them. I will never forgive anyone who tries to hurt my brother. Madara said viciously. Me too. Hashirama said with a determined look. Just as both sides were silent, Madara spoke again. Hashirama, it seems that our silly and beautiful future may not be achievable in the end. After saying this, Madara lowered his head with a gloomy face. Hashirama was shocked and opened his mouth, not knowing what to say. Although the time was short, I am really happy, Hashirama. Madara said to Hashirama indifferently. 3 on 3? How about it? Is it possible? Madara. Tajima said. No, Hashirama is stronger than me. We will lose if we fight him head-on. Madara said. A kid who is more powerful than his brother. Izuna even forgot that he was on the battlefield and lost the most basic vigilance of a ninja. He was shocked that there was actually a peer in the world who was more powerful than his brother. Really? Then let's retreat. After saying this, the three of them turned around and started to leave. At this time, Hashirama was a little panicked, and quickly said, Madara, you haven't given up, right? We finally have the same idea. You are a member of the Senjo clan. If possible, I really hope that our ideas are different. My brother was killed by the Senjo clan, and your brother died at the hands of the Uchiha clan. Madara continued, so there is no need for us to be honest with each other. From now on, we will meet on the battlefield. Senjo Hashirama, I am Uchiha Madara. After saying that, Madara turned around abruptly, and the pupils in his eyes changed from black to blood red, with the strange Megatema slowly rotating around the center. Unexpectedly, after losing his three brothers, Uchiha Madara did not activate the Sharingan, but after giving up Hashirama, he was able to activate the Sharingan. Look at my brother's eyes, father. Izuna pointed at Madara happily and said to his father. Tajima also smiled happily, and then said, although we failed to get the information about Senju, we got another good thing. Sharingan, the eye of the soul, is an eye that the Uchiha will only open after being hit by strong emotions. Compared to happiness, pain is often more intense and more unforgettable. Madara, who had never opened his eyes, actually opened the Sharingan when he severed the bond with Hashirama, which shows that Hashirama definitely has a special position in his heart. Sharingan, was it just opened? But Fusuma was a little shocked. As Uchiha's old rival for many years, he knew the conditions for opening Sharingan very well. Hashirama was silent. It was obvious that he also knew what Madara opening his eyes meant. At this moment, Madara had erased his close friend from his heart. Hashirama didn't know what to do, and wanted to speak but didn't know where to start. He even hoped that Ujian could appear at this moment to save the situation that was about to fall apart. But he was also afraid that Ujian would be defeated by both fathers and get hurt. Hashirama completely lost all ideas. Even if he would become the god of ninja in the future, what could he do at this young age? That's enough, both of you. Although this is your family affair and outsiders shouldn't interfere, I am their teacher after all, and I can't bear to see my disciples go their separate ways because of this. Suddenly, a figure flashed in the forest. The white Haori and the fiery red fox on his neck seemed to tell of his extraordinariness. Chapter 12. Hearing the sound, Madara didn't care to continue walking. He immediately turned around and saw a young man standing on the water. Who else could this man be but Natsume Tsukimi? Madara and Hashirama came to their senses and said hurriedly, Master, why are you here? Run away. Tsukimi seemed to have not heard anything and stood there carelessly. Nine Tails then jumped down from Tsukimi's neck, stood steadily on the water and said to Madara and Hashirama, Hey, you two boys, I said I would protect you two, but these two old bastards are bullying you, right? The two panicked and quickly said to their father, Father, it doesn't mean that. It is used to speaking without restraint. Please don't hurt it. After all, Fusuma and Tajima were people who had seen a lot of storms. Although Nine Tails' trash talk and murderous intent continued to emerge, their mood was not affected at all. Instead, they stared at Tsukimi, trying to analyze Tsukimi's information. After listening to the two's pleas, Nine Tails felt warm in his heart. It seemed that Madara and Hashirama still cared about him a lot. So Nine Tails said, Boy, just because of what you said, I promise not to beat your father too hard. Madara and Hashirama were both very upset at this time. They wished Nine Tails would shut up immediately. Even a clay man would have some temper, let alone the patriarchs of the two families. At this moment, the two patriarchs were more and more determined to kill Nine Tails, but because they did not know Ujian's identity, they did not act rashly. Who exactly are you? Tajima spoke first. I'm just an ordinary person, who happens to be the master of these two children. Uejian said lightly. Are you planning to declare war on our two major families at the same time? Fujian also spoke at this time, and the anger in his words was heavy. Hashirama and Madara were both frantically trying to dissuade their father. In just over a month of teaching, Tsukimi was completely open-hearted to them, and was both their teacher and friend. She held a huge importance in their hearts. Neither of them wanted anything to happen to Tsukimi, let alone being beaten and killed by her own father. It's up to you what you think. Uejian said. Your Excellency, don't you take our two families seriously enough? Tiandeo said coldly. Natsume laughed wildly, and suddenly said to the two clan leaders in a defiant tone, Do you care how many slices of bread you eat? At this moment, Madara actually forgot to worry. Ujian's appearance at this moment was deeply engraved in his mind. Although the two clan leaders did not know what bread was, they could sense that Ujian's words were full of disdain for themselves, and they both laughed out of anger. Boy, I hope your strength can live up to your tone. Fire style. Fire dragon flame bomb. After saying that, Tajima jumped back, made a few seals, and then spit a fire dragon flame bomb at Uejian. In the same way, Fujian fired a water-style water dragon bullet. Seeing that Tsukimi didn't even try to dodge the two ninjutsu, Madara and Hashirama even thought that Tsukimi had given up and shouted loudly, No. In a flash, the fire dragon and the water dragon collided with each other, and the huge amount of water vapor made it impossible for people present to see Ujian's position clearly. Madara and Hashirama looked at the scene created by the two ninjutsu and thought that Tsukimi had died here. Both of them knelt down helplessly, tears streaming down their faces. Boy, I hope you can control your temper in your next life. Tiandeo said coldly. At this moment, two fox tails suddenly stretched out from the steam. The huge chakra tails hung Tajima and Butsuma in the air. The wind pressure from the two tails blew away all the water vapor, revealing Tsukimi, who was protected by the tailed beast coat, and the 9 tails beside him that had turned into a small building. You two, you can't kill me with this level of strength. Yearn said. What? How is this possible? The 2 clan leaders said in disbelief. With such power, even if one stood still to receive it, he would be seriously injured if not killed, but this young boy took it so easily. Nothing is impossible, Kurama. I'll leave these 2 guys to you. Tsukimi said to 9 tails. Oh. 9 tails responded excitedly. It hadn't fought in many years and suddenly felt a little excited. Boy, are you looking down on me? The 2 clan leaders roared angrily. A Chakra skeleton emerged from Tajima's body and stretched out the Chakra tail that trapped him. Buddha drew his sword and instantly cut off Chakra's tail, which fell to the ground. Tajima, who possessed the Mangekyo Sharingan, raised Susanoo to protect himself, put his hands on his hips and said, "This is the 3rd power, Susanoo, die, kid." After saying this, Tajima controlled the arm of Susanoo and smashed it towards Tsukimi and 9 tails. Meanwhile, Butsuma was using a powerful ninjutsu to blast towards Tsukimi. Watching the 2 people attacking, 9 tails grinned and said, "How dare an ant compete with the bright moon?" Then he returned to his normal size. It's just the first stage of Susanoo. What's so great about it? 9 tails raised his right claw and grabbed Tajima's Susanoo. With a little force, he crushed the skeleton. At this time, Tajima and Fujian were also distracted by the huge monster in front of them. When they were about to try other strategies, 9 tails rolled them up with its tail and brought them to its mouth. This time, 9 tails did not use a tail condensed from Chakra. The 2 clan leaders struggled several times but failed to break free. Looking at the 2 people in front of him, 9 tails opened his fox mouth and a tailed beast ball began to slowly condense. Tajima and Butsuma stared at the Chakra ball in front of them. Only those who faced it knew how powerful it was. Both of them felt as if the Shinigami was waving at them. After a while, a tailed beast ball was condensed, and 9 tails' slightly opened mouth suddenly closed. The tailed beast ball brushed past the 2 of them and hit a small hill. The originally protruding hill turned into a lake. The huge depth even blasted out the groundwater. Fujian and Tiandeo swallowed involuntarily and broke out in a cold sweat. Alright 9 tails, let the 2 clan leaders down. Fujian said. 9 tails then loosened the tail that was tied to the 2 clan leaders, slowly returned to its normal size, and jumped back onto Yuejian's shoulder. Some people may ask, since Tajima already has the Mangekyo Sharingan, why doesn't he just control 9 tails directly? Fujian said he was joking. That's 9 tails, even though it's a little weak in the later stages, it's really the ceiling of combat power in the early stages. Can it be controlled by just a Mangekyo Sharingan? Throughout Hokage history, the 9 tails have been controlled 3 times, by Uchiha Madara, Uchiha Obito, and Uchiha Sasuke. Needless to say, Madara and Sasuke are the reincarnations of Indra. The increase of Indra's Chakra on eye power is undoubtedly huge, so controlling 9 tails is naturally a piece of cake. Obito can have half of his body made up of white Zetsu. As a creation of Hashirama's cells, Obito does not have to worry about the loss of his eye power even if he does not activate Eternal Mangekyo. And it still has a huge boost to his eye power. Coupled with the psychic contract of 9 tails left by Madara, it is understandable that he controls 9 tails. Besides these 3, who else has controlled 9 tails? If Mangekyo is really that strong, why would Fugaku be afraid of Konoha? He could just control 9 tails and sweep across Konoha. You two, can we have a good chat now? Chapter 13. The situation is stronger than the person. As the patriarch of the 2 major families, he is naturally not a fool and will naturally not speak rudely to Yujian again. At this moment, what the 2 clan leaders feared most was that Yujian would side with the other side. Not to mention Tsukimi, the combat power of 9 tails alone can determine the direction of this war. Sir, do you want to intervene in the war between our 2 families? Fujian asked. I don't care about the war between your 2 families at all. I only care about these 2 guys, Madara and Hashirama. After all, they are my disciples. If their strength allows, I will not let anyone force them to do something they don't like. As for your war, it's up to you. I'm only responsible for teaching them and will not participate in their decision-making. Even if they want to personally participate in the war in the future, I won't stop them. Is that clear enough? Yujian said. I understand what you mean, so I will trouble you. After saying this, Fujian and Tiandeo were ready to take their children away, and Yuejian said at this time, you 2 go on your own first, I have something to say to these 4 little guys. Tajima and Fuma clenched their teeth tightly, their eyes fixed vigilantly and firmly on Tsukimi in front of them. Although they could tell from his words and actions that Yujian had no obvious ill will towards these children, as fathers, their worries remained unabated. Tajima took a deep breath, trying to keep his voice calm, and slowly said, my dear sir, please don't hurt my children for the sake of Madara being your disciple. I am absolutely not able to compete with you with my strength, but if you really want to harm them, even if I know it's like hitting a rock with an egg, I will fight to the death. His eyes revealed a determination and fearlessness. Even though this is the Warring States period, even though human life is worthless, a father's love for his children remains uncompromised. Although Fujian was proud of Watanabe's death in battle, the sadness in his heart did not diminish at all, and the 2 were not in conflict. Fujian on the side also nodded seriously, indicating that he agreed with what Tajima said. He unconsciously clenched his hands into fists, as if ready for a possible battle at any time. At this moment, the 2 fathers have put their own safety aside, and the only thing in their minds is to protect their children from any harm. Madara and Hashirama were very moved by what they heard, but they knew Tsukimi's character and knew she would never attack her father at this moment. Yujian waved her hands and said, what good would it do me to hurt the 4 of them? Don't worry, they will go home in the evening. After hearing Yuejian's words, Fukuma and Tajima Shin felt a little relieved. After looking at their children, they left. Yujian looked back at the 4 people who were already frightened silly and found it quite interesting. Soon, Tsukimi began to stare at Madara carefully, making Madara feel uncomfortable. Uchiha Madara couldn't help but ask, Master, why are you staring at me? Tsukimi ignored him and turned to Ninetales and said, Kurama, hang Madara up and beat him up. This kid has just opened his eyes and his emotions are too volatile. He may go to extremes. We need to sober him up. When Ninetales heard this, his fox fur stood up and he was dying of laughter. Should I hit him now to wait for him to hit me later? But since Ujian had given the order, Ninetales naturally had to follow, otherwise Ujian would have to smoke it now. The familiar Chakra tail appeared again, instantly hanging Madara upside down in the air, and a very thin Chakra line lashed Madara like a whip. But Ninetales was still afraid that Madara would remember him because of this, so he explained awkwardly, Madara, it was Ujian who asked me to do this. If you want to take revenge on him, take revenge on him. Madara, who was being beaten, felt like crying when she heard Ninetales' words. She thought to herself, revenge? How dare I take revenge on you? You can kill me with just one slap, so why would I take revenge on you? At this time, Ujian found a tree to close her eyes and rest her eyes, leaving Ninetales there smoking Madara. Izuna held the short sword and looked at Hashirama and Tobirama vigilantly. Tobirama kept blinking at his brother, pouting, and took out a big sword to point it at Izuna, meaning to call on his elder brother to kill Izuna now. Could Hashirama do such a thing? Definitely not. So he punched Tobirama's head and said, put your mind back. Madara's screams continued for more than 10 minutes. Tsukimi soon got down from the tree and asked Ninetales to stop swinging the little whip. At this moment, Ninetales was addicted to whipping. Tsukimi called it twice before it listened. Madara deeply engraved Ninetales' behavior at this moment in his mind. Ninetales suddenly felt cold all over, but he didn't know what happened. He looked around and found that there was no problem, so he put Madara on the ground. Ninetales' malicious perception did not play any role at this time. After all, Madara still respected Ninetales in her heart. Tsukimi said, how's it going, Madara? Are you calming down now? Madara nodded hurriedly, pointing quickly, for fear of being hoisted up again. Hashirama watched his friend being beaten for a long time, and came over to ask with concern, Madara, are you okay? Madara thought about how so many people saw her in such an embarrassing state, and she wanted to die. She said with a frown, shut up, you watermelon rind. Be careful or I'll hang you up and beat you up next time. When Tobirama heard this, he got furious and yelled, a hole, how dare you talk to my brother like that? Seeing Tobirama being so fierce, Izuna couldn't stand it anymore, and walked forward with the knife in his hand regardless, saying, shut up Tobirama, do you want to die? Seeing that their brother was getting more and more angry, Madara and Hashirama hurriedly stopped them. Uejian smiled and said, Madara, it seems that your mood has indeed returned to normal. You don't need to be hung up and whipped anymore. Madara looked at Ninetales with lingering fear and said, thank you, teacher, otherwise I would have lost control of my emotions and chosen a path I didn't want to choose. After saying this, Madara was still a little scared. He could feel that he seemed to be affected by a strange force and his thoughts became particularly extreme. After listening to this, Ujian called Hashirama and Madara to her and asked, what did you learn today? Thinking back to today, it can be said to be a fantasy experience. Recalling how Ninetales forcefully suppressed the two clan leaders, and then after Ujian communicated with the two, no one died. This was very unwarring states. Under normal circumstances, with such a big gap in combat power, someone would definitely have died. So the two of them sorted out their thoughts and spoke separately. It seems that peace cannot be achieved through negotiation alone. It is impossible for two parties full of hostility to sit down at the negotiating table calmly, said Hashirama. Yes, only through absolute force can both sides calm down and make communication possible. And communication can indeed resolve conflicts and reduce casualties. Madara said later. It seems that you two have made a lot of progress after what happened today. So you two should keep working hard. Whether you decide to work together to create peace in the future or become mortal enemies, I will not interfere with you. But no matter what, strength is definitely the most important. Without strength, you are just the wail of the weak, and no one will care. Unless you become strong enough, the world will hear your voice. Ujian said. Yes, master. The two nodded. Chapter 14. However, thinking of Ninetales' strength, Madara and Hashirama felt a little guilty. At this moment, Ninetales was truly an insurmountable mountain for them. Uchiha Madara showed his strength from the moment he activated the Mangekyou Sharingan, while Senju Hashirama's strength increased rapidly after he mastered the wood style. At present, the two can only be regarded as geniuses among ordinary people. Ujian noticed the emotions of the two and asked, why, are you shocked by Kurama's strength? The two said yes. Ujian laughed and took out Ninetales' spiritual scroll and said, sign your names on it and feel it. Madara and Hashirama were naturally very curious and asked, Tsukimi-sensei, what is this? This is your teacher Kurama's spiritual scroll. By the way, you don't seem to know Kurama's true strength yet. Come on, let me tell you about it. So Uejian told the four children present about Ninetales' ability. When they heard Uejian say that Ninetales possessed infinite chakra, they all gasped, and Ninetales could hardly hold back his anger. Teacher, what is a summoning scroll? There was no such thing as summoning during the Warring States period. In the original work, Jiraiya was the first to use summoning. The young Jiraiya could be said to be very lucky. A summoning technique sent him to Mount Maya. Boku, starting his road to rise. Summoning is a kind of space-time ninjutsu. After the caster reaches a contractual relationship with the summoned beast can be summoned anytime and anywhere to fight side by side. Of course, if the summoned beast is unwilling, it can refuse to respond. Madara and Hashirama were very shocked and said, this is Ninetales' summoning scroll. Ever since Ninetales started teaching them Raise Nan, they started calling him Ninetales, and Ninetales was very happy with the title. That's right, and this ninjutsu has been modified by Kurama and Kurama can transfer chakra to the signatory through the contract. Tsukimi said with a smile looking at the two of them. Then doesn't it mean that the signatory has unlimited chakra? Hashirama said. Tobirama interrupted, stupid brother, first consider whether your body can withstand so much chakra. Hashirama scratched his head in embarrassment. Madara then said, even so, it's still pretty impressive. After signing the contract, you don't have to worry about running out of chakra anymore. Yes, after signing the contract, you will no longer have to worry about chakra issues. Moreover, as your physical strength increases, Kurama will be able to transfer more chakra, and you will be able to use ninjutsu with greater power. For example, in the original work, Madara was so obsessed with becoming 10 tails Jinchuriki, because the amount of chakra required to perform infinite Tsukuyomi was too great, and only by becoming 10 tails Jinchuriki could he perform this ninjutsu. To put it simply, infinite Tsukuyomi is just Tsukuyomi on a large scale. In essence, it is still Tsukuyomi, there is no difference. It's the equivalent of the raise nan to the big ball raise nan, and then to the massive raise nan and the like. After saying this, Yuejian unfolded the scroll and said to Madara and Hashirama, you two should use your own blood to sign your names on the scroll. The two people who had never been exposed to spiritualism did not know that their own blood was needed to sign the contract. After hearing what Yuejian said, they bit their index fingers with their teeth at the same time, looked at Yuejian's name at the front of the scroll, and signed their own names right after it. Tsukimi's revised summoning contract will leave a sealing techniques pattern on the abdomen, which is somewhat similar to the shape of the Xylan seal. The nine tails chakra is transmitted through this technique. Thus, for the first time in this world, the names of Uchiha Madara and Senjo Hashirama appeared on the same summoning scroll. Just as Tsukimi was feeling happy about this, there was a sudden ding sound. Ding, host is detected to have slightly changed the fate of Uchiha Madara, rewarding Yin attribute chakra. Ding, it is detected that the host has slightly changed the fate of Senjo Hashirama, and the Yang attribute chakra is rewarded. Ding, host has been detected to have changed Kurama's fate, reward, a tailed beast fruit. Ding, the fate of an important character in the original novel has been changed for the first time. The system is about to be upgraded. The upgrade time is 2 hours. During this period, all system functions cannot be used normally. As soon as the system prompt sounded, Yuejian felt a stream of fresh air flowing through her mind, and a warm current flowed from her heart to her limbs. When this feeling faded, Yuejian found that she could see farther and more clearly, and could even see the Madara dots of ladybugs on distant trees. The body also felt stronger. After careful feeling, Yuejian found that the speed of her chakra recovery was more than 10 times faster than before, and the speed of cell regeneration was also much faster. Normally, it could have half the effect of the previous cell regeneration method. It seems that the yin-yang attribute chakra has arrived. So far, Tsukimi has all 7 chakra attributes, but the bloodline limit or bloodline elimination must be developed by oneself or obtained through bloodline, so Tsukimi still does not have special escape techniques such as ice escape at this moment. But with yin-yang chakra, Yumi can try to research the tailed beast ball. There are many people in the Hokage world who have both yin-yang chakra, but why has no one developed the tailed beast ball? First of all, the tailed beast ball requires extremely high chakra control ability, and the tailed beasts, as the incarnation of chakra, are extremely good at this. Second, most people rarely come into contact with the tailed beasts. Except for the Jinchuriki, basically no one can deal with the tailed beasts, so there is no chance to learn the tailed beast ball. Since the Jinchuriki can already release the tailed beast balls with the help of the tailed beasts, they naturally won't waste energy on learning. The third and most important point is that the human body is difficult to support the condensation and release of the tailed beast ball. If the tailed beast ball explodes around you accidentally, there will be no trace left. Launching it will also cause great damage to the body. Besides, the tailed beast ball is a super intense concentration of chakra. Even though it is so small, the amount of chakra required is enough to drain more than a dozen JA. Nin. But these are not a problem for Natsume, as he also has chakra, and so does the tailed beast sensei. As for physical injuries, it's even more ridiculous. Even if his arm is blown off, he can recover in just a dozen minutes by using the cell regeneration method. If there are immortal bodies in the future, even if only one head of Yuejian is left, it can be guaranteed to recover within 10 seconds. Looking at the last tailed beast fruit, it is certain that this should be for 9 tails to eat, but now the system is being updated, and Tsukimi, who doesn't know what effect this fruit has, can only put it aside. Looking at Uchiha Madara and Senjo Hashirama who had happily signed the contract, Izuna and Tobirama were both happy and envious. They were happy that their brother's strength had greatly improved, and they were envious that they also wanted to sign this summoning contract. Yuejian naturally knew what the two people were thinking, but there is a saying that goes, people always cherish things that are hard to come by, and they will not value things that are too easy to get. Therefore, Yuejian, who originally wanted to take these two people as his disciples, did not let them sign the contract directly. Madara, Hashirama, the two of you close your eyes and carefully feel 9 tails chakra. Yumi interrupted the two excited people. So the two of them sat cross-legged and carefully felt the chakra coming from their abdomen. After more than an hour, many red bubbles slowly emerged from Hashirama's body, and many red chakras slowly flowed out like water. Isn't this the tailed beast's outer garment? Madara was only a second or two behind Hashirama, and the dark red chakra also enveloped him. The two opened their eyes and looked at the strangeness on their bodies and asked, Master, is this the chakra of Teacher Ju? Yes, this layer of chakra on you is called the tailed beast coat. Tailed beasts? Could this be from Nine Tails race? Madara's mind worked quickly, and she immediately associated 9 tails with the tailed beasts. Yes, but there are only 9 tailed beasts in total, so they can't be considered a race. As soon as Yuejian finished speaking, Hashirama said in surprise, What, there are 8 people as strong as Teacher Ju? 9 Tails said, Shut up, you stupid brat. Even if those 8 scumbags joined forces, they couldn't beat me. Okay, but Kurama is not bragging, but the most important thing now is to be familiar with the tailed beast coat. The two of them nodded obediently and went to familiarize themselves with the tailed beast costumes. Just then the system prompt sounded. Ding, the system has been updated. Please check the updated content by the host. Chapter 15. Ding, the system update is complete. System, please tell me what has been updated this time. This system update mainly has the following 2 points. 1. The system updates the scanning function. When the host forms a bond with a character in the original novel, the system will automatically scan the character's regrets and count them into the system. Second, the regret tasks are clarified. The host can accurately query the regret tasks in the system interface, which helps the host to better make up for the regrets of the original characters. But to be clear, each character only has one regret mission. After the system update, it was of great help to Yearn, so that she had a precise target when completing the regrettable tasks. Ding, Uchiha Madara, Senjo Hashirama, Kurama's regretful mission has been counted into the system. Host, please check it yourself. It's quite efficient. Yearn said. So Yearn began to look up the regrettable mission of the two people and one beast. Uchiha Madara, I will protect my brother, my people, and my village mission requirements. Uchiha Madara is named First Hokage with the support of the villagers. The Uchiha clan's support rate for the clan leader reaches over 95%, and Uchiha Izuna does not die in battle. Task completion rate, 26% stage reward, 3 Megatama Sharingan. Senjo Hashirama, I want both my best friends and my village task requirements. Realize Uchiha Madara and Senjo Hashirama protecting Konoha together. Task completion rate, 26% stage reward, wood style bloodline limit. Kurama, my dream is freedom mission requirements. Completely free Nine Tails from the fate of being sealed and help Nine Tails establish a bond with humans. Task completion, 45% stage reward, Tailed Beast Ball mastery level. Looking at the rewards above, Yearn was very excited. These three would greatly improve her combat power, and the progress of Nine Tails had already reached 40%. If she worked harder, she could directly master the Tailed Beast Ball. Suddenly, Yearn remembered that she seemed to have not yet seen the effect of the Tailed Beast Fruit, so she quickly checked it in the system panel. Tailed Beast Fruit breaks the shackles of the Tailed Beast's life level, making it possible for the Tailed Beast to take a further step. Yumi's jaw almost dropped when she saw the effect of the Tailed Beast Fruit. You know, the strength of the Tailed Beasts is fixed after they are separated, but as long as they eat the Tailed Beast Fruit, they can practice and improve like humans. It's incredible. Thinking about it, Yearn quickly pulled Nine Tails off her shoulders. Nine Tails was caught off guard by the back of Fate's neck and yelled, Yearn, what on earth are you going to do? Stop, 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 Kurama. I'm going to grant you an opportunity, and you're yelling at me like this. Chance, you can fool ghosts, but are you so kind as to give me chance? How can I trust someone who even wants to snatch barbecue from me? Of course, Nine Tails said this jokingly, but he really didn't expect that Yearn was really going to give him a great opportunity to change his life. Tsukimi ignored Nine Tails and took out the Tailed Beast Fruit from her sleeve. The moment she took it out, Nine Tails' eyes widened. Although Nine Tails didn't know what it was, her intuition told her that she must eat it. Yearn, what kind of fruit is this and why do I want to eat it so much? Tsukimi did not keep the secret and told Nine Tails the effect of the Tailed Beast Fruit. However, Nine Tails became restrained after hearing it. Are you really letting me eat such an important fruit? Nonsense, if you don't want to eat it, will you let me eat it? If you really don't want to eat it, I'll catch a civet cat and feed it to it later. No, 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 I can eat it. Nine Tails knew that Yearn said this so that he could eat without any psychological burden, so he was so moved that he swore in his heart that if anyone wanted to hurt Yearn, they must step over his dead body first. Nine Tails was not a fussy fox, and he immediately swallowed the Tailed Beast Fruit. Soon after, a large red cocoon made of chakra wrapped Nine Tails inside. At this time, Madara and Hashirama, who were training, found that the Tailed Beast coats on their bodies suddenly disappeared. The two confused people had to ask Tsukimi. After learning that Nine Tails' strength was about to be further improved, they were also happy from the bottom of their hearts. Since Nine Tails was fine, Madara and Hashirama had other plans. Both of them hoped that Yearn can accept their younger brother as a disciple. In this uncertain era, strength is always the most important weapon to protect oneself. Tsukimi neither agreed nor refused, but called Tobirama and Izuna to her presence. Of course, Tsukimi would not beg the two to become her disciples. Hashirama and Madara were also smart people. While they were getting familiar with the Tailed Beast's outer garment, they had done some ideological work on their brother. So Tobirama and Izuna came to Tsukimi and bowed their heads, saying in unison, Master Tsukimi, please accept me as your disciple. You two little guys, do you dare to take me as your master without knowing what kind of person I am? I believe in my brother's vision, and Lord Tsukimi is the most capable person I have ever met. I will definitely learn a lot from you. If Tobirama wasn't smart, he would have blurted it out without even thinking. Izuna took a long time to come up with, me too. Oh? You can become my disciple, but what can you bring to me? Even though Tobirama was smart, he didn't know what to say at this moment. Seeing this, Yearn stopped teasing them. After all, he had to accept these two people. Okay, I won't tease you two anymore. It would be too hasty to just accept you as my apprentices. How about this, you two come with your brother to train with me. If you can master the Raise Nan in half a month, I will accept you as my apprentices. As for what the Raise Nan is, you two can ask Madara and Hashirama. Now that the opportunity has been given to you, it depends on whether you cherish it or not. Also, no matter what deep hatred you have, you must not fight with me except for sparring. Remember. I've got it. Thank you, Master Yearn. Then Madara and Hashirama began to teach the two separately. After a while, Nine Tails' cocoon cracked, and Nine Tails jumped out from the crack. Tsukimi stared at it for a long time and found that there was no change. Then Yearn said, Kurama, you haven't changed at all. Nine Tails chuckled and scratched its front leg with its claws, and blood actually flowed out. Nine Tails said, well, I now have a real body, and I can also practice various ninjutsu, genjutsu, and taijutsu, and even improve my mental strength like you humans. But the only bad news is that I can't recondense over time after death like before. But the good news is that impure world reincarnation can now revive me. I have finally become a real life. Yearn was very happy to hear this and said, congratulations, Kurama. Nine Tails chuckled and said, when I become stronger after training, I will defeat any Aoi Satsuki clan that attacks me. Tsukimi-kun, you just live with a smile behind my back. Because Tsukimi had previously tricked Ninetales into saying that she had traveled from the future, Ninetales believed that the future crisis was caused by the invasion of the Aoi Tsutsuki clan. After all, Ninetales also learned the general plot of the Hokage from Tsukimi. Uchiha rubbed Ninetales' hair and said, then I'll leave it to you, Kurama. Leave it to me, Uegian. Ninetales was very happy to hear Uegian's trust in him. After saying that, he went to practice with Uchiha Madara and Senju Hashirama. After all, Ninetales could practice now, and practicing with them could help him find some inspiration. After all, Hashirama and Madara's strength will reach its ceiling in the future. Chapter 16. Watching Ninetales, Hashirama and Madara using mini raise nan to throw at each other, practicing ninjutsu and chakra control on one side and taijutsu and reaction skills on the other. At this time, Hashirama and Madara cannot use Ninetales' chakra. Of course, Ninetales was hit the most times. After all, what kind of physical skills did Ninetales practice before? He just crushed them. But things are different now. In the past, such behavior was only done by brainless tailed beasts. Now Ninetales announced that it has unilaterally withdrawn from the tailed beast class and will no longer play with those idiots. Of course, Ninetales relied on his strong chakra manipulation ability and unlimited chakra to condense dozens of mini raise nan at once, making Hashirama and Madara flee in panic, and they could only hit Ninetales 1 or 2 times when they had a chance to catch their breath. Senju Tobirama and Uchiha Izuna watched their training with great envy. After all, it was the first time they saw such boring training become so interesting. This was very unsengoku. So the two of them put all their efforts into practicing raise nan, hoping that Tsukimi would accept them as disciples as soon as possible so that they could participate in the training of Ninetales. Of course there is one most important reason. Damn it, I absolutely don't want to lose to Uchiha Izuna, Tobirama thought. I can lose to anyone, but I can't lose to Senju, Tobirama Izuna thought. The two of them looked at each other at the same time, snorted in unison, and further increased the supply of chakra in their palms. In the evening, Hashirama and Madara said goodbye to each other and went home with their brothers. It is impossible to expect Tobirama and Izuna to say goodbye to each other, so we should be thankful that they are not stabbing each other in the back for now. After returning home, Hashirama and Tobirama were called into the room by Senju Furuma, who asked them for information about Tsukimi. Hashirama insisted on not speaking, while Tobirama knew basically nothing. When Fukin saw this, he knew that he could not get any more information out of them, so he told the two men not to forget the family feud and to wipe out the entire Uchiha clan. Of course, Fusuma said this mainly to Tobirama, but he also understood that Hashirama's kindness was only towards Uchiha Madara and Uchiha Izuna, and of course Izuna was incidental. As for the other Uchiha people, if he really saw them on the battlefield, Hashirama would not show mercy. Pursuing peace is one thing, but the reality is another. We cannot allow hostile forces to kill our own people just for the sake of pursuing peace. The life and death of ordinary members of the clan on the battlefield is unimportant. As long as the last two family leaders decide to form an alliance, all previous sacrifices seem to be meaningless. When Fusuma saw Hashirama and Tobirama nodded, he let them go back to sleep. Half a month is both long and short, and soon it was the day for Tobirama and Izuna to show their results. It was still dark, Madara and Hashirama were still sleeping at home, Tobirama and Izuna had already reached the river. In order to prevent any accidents from happening during today's show, both of them had made adequate preparations. Just as the eastern sky began to turn pale, the sound of raise nan was heard from the woods along the river bank. Amid the continuous sounds, trees fell down one after another. Seeing that the time was almost up, the two of them quickly sat down to meditate and regulate their breathing to restore their chakras. Madara and Hashirama, who came to the forest at this time, were shocked when they saw the scene in front of them. Maybe they had been living too happily recently and had become a little slack in their training. The two of them made up their minds and decided to get up before dawn tomorrow and come to the training ground early to start training. Not long after, Uegian appeared by the river. Because Uegian lived on a cliff, which was some distance away from the river, she could not hear any noise coming from the river. As for whether you can sense it or not, it goes without saying. You are already invincible and you still keep your chakra sense on when you sleep. Doesn't this affect your sleep quality? The high-intensity exercise in the morning caused Izuna and Tobirama's hands to suffer certain degrees of injuries, but it definitely did not affect their performance, and they still had some control. When Tobirama and Izuna saw Tsukimi arrive, they quickly stood up and said, Sir Tsukimi, I'm ready. Uegian waved her hand and said, Don't worry, Kurama, treat their hands first. Ninetales jumped down on his own accord and wrapped the two men's right hands with red chakra. The small scars on their hands gradually disappeared at a speed visible to the naked eye. Because Ninetales does not have hatred towards humans at this time, its chakra does not have the negative effect of burning the skin, and Ninetales' tailed beast coat can greatly promote the body's self-repair. From Naruto and the 4th Ninja World War, we can see that Ninetales' tailed beast coat has some heaven-defying healing effects, and any minor injuries can heal quickly. Seeing that the two had almost recovered, Uchiha said, Eat something first, then start the demonstration. Madara and Hashirama went down to the river and caught a few fish. Tsukimi and Ninetales were the elders present at the time, so it was definitely not the elders who could catch the fish. As Tobirama and Izuna are candidates, they must not be distracted at this time. As for why they ate fish, it was because the wild boars nearby had almost all been eaten by Uegian, and if they wanted to catch more, they had to look for them in farther places, and it was a bit too late in terms of time. After a while, under Uegian's skillful hands, the fish on the wooden stick was roasted with an irresistible aroma. It was a joke. He has been a barbecue master for more than 1,000 years, and his level of control over the heat is self-evident. Several people quickly shared the grilled fish. At this time, Izuna and Tobirama's affection for Tsukimi continued to grow because of her attitude towards them. She treated her injured hand first and fed her first if she hadn't eaten. This kind of treatment was not available even at home. After simply cleaning up the mess, Tobirama and Izuna stood by the river and shouted in unison, Raise nan. Only a light shout was heard, and before the words were finished, two light blue lights suddenly lit up. Upon closer inspection, it turned out to be two azure gem-like balls of light that were rapidly condensing in the palms of the two men, with strands of cyclones entwined on the surface of the balls of light. The two men looked at each other, and they understood each other and swung their arms at the same time, pushing the raised nan in their hands, which was spinning endlessly and emitting a powerful aura, fiercely towards the big tree in front of them. In an instant, the air seemed to be torn apart, making a sharp whistling sound. Following two loud dull noises, the two originally sturdy and tall trees turned out to be as vulnerable as paper, and two deep holes were directly made by the blows. Jian clapped her hands and praised, not bad, you two have mastered the raised nan. From now on, I will officially accept you two as my apprentices. Izuna and Tobirama couldn't wait to salute, then said, Master. Jian was very happy. She took out the nine-tailed spiritual scroll and spread it in front of the two people. This is your apprenticeship gift first. I will give you the official apprenticeship gift later. Then Jian said to the two people watching the show, of course, Hashirama, Madara, your apprenticeship gifts will be given to you later. The four of them said yes in unison, and then Tobirama and Izuna couldn't wait to bite their fingers and sign their names on the summoning scroll. Ding, Uchiha Izuna, Senjo Tobirama's regretful mission detected, please check host. Afterwards, Jian sent a few people to practice and quickly opened the system panel to check what Izuna and Tobirama's tasks and task rewards were. Senjo Tobirama, can I still see the future of Konoha? Mission requirements, ensure that Senjo Tobirama does not die in the First Ninja World War and reconcile with the Uchiha clan. Task completion rate, 1% stage reward, all ninjutsu of B rank and below. Uchiha Izuna, brother, I will always be by your side. Quest requirements, witness Uchiha Madara being named First Hokage and reconciling with the Senjo clan. Task completion rate, 2% stage reward, all genjutsu of B rank and below. Looking at the tasks and rewards of the two, Jian was a little happy. After all, the rewards of these two people were what she really needed. After all, her ninjutsu and genjutsu reserves were extremely insufficient. By analogy, the next stage is A-level technique, and the next is S-level. As for the final reward, it is hard to guess. 17. Now that he has completed accepting a disciple, Tsukimi is not going to keep anything to herself. The idea of a hero teaching the disciple to starve himself to death will never happen to Tsukimi. When Izuna and Tobirama's mission is completed, he will be Dr. Ninjutsu, and the title of Third Hokage will not matter to him. Jian gathered his disciples together for a small meeting, and soon the four of them sat together. Looking at the four people on the left and right, Tsukimi felt a little overwhelmed. She saw Uchiha Madara and Senjo Tobirama standing next to each other, while Izuna was beside Madara, staring at Tobirama. Tobirama was undoubtedly sitting next to Hashirama, looking at Izuna with murderous intent in his eyes. Madara and Hashirama are okay, but Tobirama and Izuna really want to kill each other. It can be seen from the completion rate of their tasks. One is 1% and the other is 2%, neither is much better. However, Nine-Tails has been training with Madara and Hashirama these days, and their relationship has become better and better. The mission completion rate has reached 49%, and only the finishing touch is left. Tsukimi estimates that if she lets Nine-Tails train with them again today, she might be able to get the tailed beast ball as a reward. Looking at the people in front of him, Jian said, today is the day I officially accept Tobirama and Izuna as my apprentices. I know you two want to kill each other, but I have only one request. You cannot kill here. This is a principle. No matter if it's a one-on-one training or a multi-person fight, you can hit each other as hard as you want, but no one can die. As for the battlefield, I will not restrict you. After all, I have no way to make you let go of your hatred. On the battlefield, everyone depends on their own abilities. If you can learn something from me, your chances of survival on the battlefield may be a little better. Especially Tobirama and Izuna, I don't expect you to let each other go just because of your friendship, but before you kill, use your brains and think about whether you want to be dragged into the war. I hope you can change the war, rather than be changed by it. That's all I have to say. From now on, every time you come to train, you will do the same as your brother did before. In the morning, you will practice Raise Nan and its advanced ninjutsu with Sensei Kurama, and in the afternoon, you will learn super strength from me. It's over, go practice on your own. After saying that, Nine-Tails took the four people to practice Raise Nan, while Tsukimi sat there and checked the panel. It is said that Izuna is like Nijiru Uchi, not only in appearance, but also in personality. They are the kind of people who are easily fooled, especially those who are respected. After all, Izuna now truly worships Tsukimi as his teacher and respects her from the bottom of his heart. Later, future Sasuke learned from Kakashi and Orochimaru, but he did not become their apprentice after all. Moreover, Sasuke, who had experienced the genocide of his clan by Uchiha, was almost driven crazy by Itachi. This was one of the reasons why he could draw his sword against Kakashi and Orochimaru without hesitation. After all, there is not much respect for these two people, and for Orochimaru, the relationship is one of mutual exploitation. Izuna is different now. Sharingan has not been opened yet. He is just a middle school boy at most. When he heard Tsukimi say, we should change the war, not be changed by it, he kept thinking in his mind. Izuna is not stupid, but no one has ever said such words to him. So at this time, Izuna gradually began to think about the meaning of war. So Yumi watched as Izuna's mission completion rate on the panel gradually increased from 2% to 15%, which was a big increase. On the other hand, Tobirama's mission completion rate was still an eye-catching 1%. Yumi rubbed her forehead and whispered, there is still a long way to go. After sighing, Jian stopped thinking about these troubles and walked towards the place where the others were practicing. Nine-Tails saw Jian coming over and asked curiously, Jian, what are you doing here? Jian said, I was a little bored, so I came here to practice with you guys. Nine-Tails' pupils shrank instantly. He knew how terrifying Yumi was. This monster had more chakra than himself. Nine-Tails quickly said, Jian, you. As soon as Nine-Tails opened his mouth, Hashirama said happily, okay. I don't know the real strength of the master yet. This is a good opportunity to see it for myself. Ninetales was extremely speechless at the moment, staring at Hashirama and thinking in his heart, Hashirama, right? Just wait for a while. Ujian said, okay, let's get started. As soon as he finished speaking, hundreds of mini rays nan appeared in Ujian's hands and shot at the 4 people in the fox like a machine gun. The mini balls only hurt people and could cause minor injuries at most, which was nothing for a ninja, but there were too many of them. Soon, several people's bodies were covered with bruises, especially Hashirama's face, which was swollen. After all, a certain fox with no martial ethics didn't hit anyone else and just stared at Hashirama. Looking at the miserable people, Ujian said happily, I will practice with you more often in the future. Hashirama scratched his head and wanted to say something but finally held it back. Of course, Ninetales was not having a good time either. The other 4 all threw mini rays nan, while Ninetales was facing a normal rays nan. Ninetales spun and jumped, with his eyes closed. But he caught every rays nan perfectly, howling in pain. After all, not only was Tsukimi's chakra manipulation level inhuman, but his throwing skills were also unpredictable. Ninetales was standing in Tsukimi's blind spot, but a rays nan still flew over from nowhere. After a training session, the 4 of them were completely practicing physical skills and agility. Among them, Tobirama and Hashirama were beaten the worst, Hashirama because of the targeting of Ninetales, and Tobirama because of the extra attention that Tsukimi paid to him. Tsukimi swore that as long as Tobirama was 1% stronger, he would take care of Tobirama for 1 more day. On the one hand, it would make Tobirama stronger, and on the other hand, Tsukimi would be able to calm down. He had never seen such a stubborn donkey. As for Ninetales, well, does a slightly improved ability to take beatings count as progress? Just then the system prompt sounded. Ding! Ninetales' regret mission is detected to be 50% complete, and the tailed beast ball proficiency level is rewarded. Please check it, host. Tsukimi looked at the panel and found that Ninetales' stage mission had been completed, and the mission progress of others had also improved to varying degrees, except for Tobirama, which remained at the unshakable 1%. Tsukimi was so angry that she was itching to bite him. But Ujian was also content. Considering that each training session brought different progress, it seemed that she would have to practice more with her disciples in the future. The rewards for the next stage of Ninetales missions have also appeared. Kurama, my dream is freedom mission requirements, completely free Ninetales from the fate of being sealed and help Ninetales establish a bond with humans. Task completion, 50% stage reward, truth-seeking ball. Ujian was quite jealous of this reward, because it was the truth-seeking ball. It was very useful for attack or defense, or even turning into a black stick to poke people. It could be said to be a panacea. System, is this a fixed number of truth-seeking balls as a reward, or a method to refine truth-seeking balls? Ding, the reward is the method to condense the truth-seeking ball. As long as the host chakra is sufficient, you can condense it continuously. Ujian was extremely happy now. If she got the reward, even though she didn't have the combat power of 6 paths yet, at least she would have the lethality of 6 paths, which meant she could be considered half a step to 6 paths. But that's all in the future. The most important thing now is to familiarize yourself with the tailed beast ball and see what the difference is between releasing the tailed beast ball with the physical body and releasing the tailed beast ball with the tailed beast. When Yumi was getting familiar with the tailed beast ball, 2 tightly wrapped ninjas suddenly walked into the gold exchange office. Chapter 18. When Yumi was getting familiar with the tailed beast ball, 2 tightly wrapped ninjas suddenly walked into the gold exchange office. The clerk greeted them warmly. You two, are you here to take a mission or do some shopping? Neither ninja spoke first, but instead kept on guarding each other. Just as the atmosphere was becoming increasingly tense, the clerk eased the atmosphere by saying, please spare us, our small shop can't stand the trouble from the 2 of you. One of the ninjas snorted coldly, walked to the counter, took out a scroll and said, notify all gold exchange offices to offer a bounty for this person. The bounty is 20 million taels. The name, portrait, and location are all in the scroll. The clerk unfolded the scroll and found that the person on it seemed familiar, with long black hair and a gentle and youthful face, as if he had just seen him not long ago. So the clerk rubbed his eyes and looked carefully again. Wasn't this the weird man who exchanged gold and silver for nothing? The clerk looked at the bounty of 20 million taels again. He was glad that he didn't rob the robbers at that time. Such a high bounty must not be an ordinary person. Just as the previous ninja left, another ninja came forward, threw a scroll, and said coldly, reward, the information is all in it. After saying that, he left the gold exchange. After the clerk opened it, he was even more shocked to find that the scroll was also a reward for that weirdo, and the reward was also 20 million. There are 2 ways to offer a reward for gold exchange. One is to keep the reward directly after offering it, which is the most common way. The other method is to issue a bounty based on the family's reputation. After the mission is completed, the bounty office staff will go to the family's homeland in person to collect the bounty. These 2 ninjas are obviously the latter. The clerk pulled the 2 scrolls to the end and said gloatingly, I want to see which 2 families this guy has offended. Soon the scrolls were pulled to the back, and there was a small family emblem of Kakuzu printed on the lower right corner of the 2 scrolls, and the seals of the heads of each family were stamped on them, which could be regarded as an anti-counterfeiting mark. The clerk took a closer look and couldn't help but exclaimed, how did this guy offend both the Senjo clan and the Uchiha clan at the same time? The ninjas returned to their respective clans and reported to their clan leaders before heading to the battlefield. The person on whom the bounty was offered was Natsume Tsukimi. The reason why the 2 major families offered the bounty on Natsume Tsukimi was very simple, which was to see what Tsukimi's real strength was. After all, the 2 major families knew no information at all about this person. Just when Tajima was pondering the pros and cons of offering a bounty on Tsukimi, a dark figure emerged from the ground of the Uchiha clan's shrine. This person was none other than Black Zetsu, who was working hard to save his mother. To be honest, the Uchiha clan really didn't know much about their own clan land. They didn't even know that the stone tablet left by the sage of 6 paths under their shrine could be deciphered with the Manjikaya Sharingan. They opened their eyes and went to war, and they almost got their brains beaten out. Therefore, the contents on the stone tablet have not been recorded by the Uchiha clan so far, which gives Black Zetsu room to modify it. The content on the stone tablet itself was carved by the Sage of Six Paths to persuade Indra to reincarnate, but Black Zetsu modified it to pieces, making it a catalyst for the confrontation between Indra and Ashura. Black Zetsu, who had just finished modifying the stone tablet, was extremely tired. He hurriedly left the Uchiha clan's territory. After all, Tajima possessed the Mangekyo Sharingan, and if they really faced each other, it might bring him some trouble. After all, Mangekyo is like opening a blind box. You never know which ability will defeat Black Zetsu. For example, if Obito throws Black Zetsu into the Kamui space, then Black Zetsu will not be able to influence the ninja world. About 10 miles away from the Uchiha clan's territory, Black Zetsu stopped. He turned his head and looked to the west. Black Zetsu's perception was absolutely terrifying. He could still clearly sense Madara's location even though he was dozens of miles away. Black Zetsu has been monitoring Madara for many years, and naturally knows that Madara has recently found a master who is difficult to figure out, so Black Zetsu didn't dare to monitor him closely. Heiju said sinisterly, "Mom, I have already found a suitable reincarnation, please wait for me for a while." Yearn, who was discussing the truth-seeking ball with Nine Tails, suddenly stopped. Nine Tails asked, "What's wrong, Yearn?" Yearn said, "It seems like something is peeking in here." Nine Tails said, "Now that you mention it, I seem to have a feeling that the sight should be coming from the east." "So, you are just trying out the tailed beast ball, why not fire a shot towards it and give it a try?" Tsukimi nodded, and made her right hand into a tiger claw shape. The blue and red chakra condensed into a black ball in the palm of her hand. Tsukimi aimed at the east, and with a whoosh, the tailed beast ball flew over, and all the trees along the way were ruthlessly crushed into powder. Black Zetsu, who was walking, suddenly felt his hair stand on end. If Black Zetsu had hair, he would have used all his strength to drill into the ground, and used the mayfly technique with all his strength, randomly picked a direction, and moved hundreds of miles in an instant. The tailed beast ball exploded where Black Zetsu originally was. The dazzling light is like a rising sun, making it impossible to look directly at it. In the strong light, the ground was covered like an eggshell, just like the effect of Danzo's ceiling bridge was magnified proportionally. Immediately afterwards, a gust of air surged out like a tidal wave. Wherever the gusts of wind passed, trees were uprooted and huge rocks were easily picked up like sand and thrown high into the sky. A huge semicircular pit appeared before his eyes. The pit wall was a smooth arc, as if it had been precisely dug out by a huge force. The pit mouth is so vast that you can't see the end of it. Black Zetsu, who had crawled out of the ground, knelt on the ground and coughed continuously. Even though he was fast, he was still affected by the explosion of the tailed beast ball. At this moment, Black Zetsu hurriedly looked around. It was a dense forest, more than 10 miles away from the Senjo clan's territory. Black Zetsu thought, it should be safe here. At this moment, Black Zetsu listed Tsukimi as the type of person that should not be provoked. He just looked at him and he returned a tailed beast ball to him. At this moment, Black Zetsu thought that he had been completely exposed to Yearn, so he no longer dared to open his perception to look at Yearn, and began to meditate and regulate his breathing. But what is the truth? Oh, we can't go east, we can't go east. As I remember, that's the Uchiha clan's territory. How are you going to explain to Madara if you blew up their territory? Nine Tails said. Yearn scratched his head, raised his hand and said, "Then I will go south." After saying this, the tailed beast ball left his hand and flew to the south. Nine Tails propped his chin up with his front paws and thought, "South? Hiss, the south seems to be the Senjo clan's territory. Tsukimi, did you do this on purpose? Are you afraid that Madara and Hashirama won't be able to beat me to death in the future, and you've offended them to death? You just patted your butt and left, and they thought I was the one who put the tailed beast ball there. How can I explain it to them?" Just as Nine Tails was roaring at Tsukimi, Black Zetsu once again felt the crisis of life and death. He didn't even bother to cough and used the mayfly technique again. The same scene was reenacted at the edge of the Senjo tribe's territory. At this moment, Black Zetsu was overdrawing his body and was still using the mayfly technique. He did not stop until he had moved several hundred miles. After coming out, Black Zetsu knelt down directly and spit out a mouthful of blood. "It's terrible, Natsume Tsukimi is too scary. No, I can't get close to her anymore. From now on, I must stay more than 100 miles away from Natsume Tsukimi," Black Zetsu said with lingering fear. At this moment, Yearn was comforting Nine Tails, saying, "I sensed that neither of the two tribes was hurt at all. On the contrary, I even dug an artificial lake for them." Nine Tails said, "You should launch it farther away next time. I am really afraid that my happiness will be ruined in your hands." Tsukimi said okay, raised her hand and launched a tailed beast ball to a location hundreds of miles away, which happened to be where Black Zetsu was. Damn it, what? Why is it coming again? Black Zetsu couldn't care about anything else at this moment. The continuous and rapid long-distance performance of the mayfly technique caused his body to be a little exhausted. This time, Black Zetsu simply ran back to the base camp, knelt on the ground and spit out blood. Impossible, absolutely impossible. Natsume Tsukimi is a monster. He can't go out anymore. I'll wait for him to die in a few decades before going to the ninja world. Mom, please wait for me for a while. I will definitely rescue you. At this moment, Yearn had no idea that she had solved a problem unknowingly. Hey, Kurama, do you think I sensed it wrongly? I don't seem to have that feeling now. Well, it could be that some wild animal passed by and took a look. Anyway, it's not a big deal, so let's not think about it. Chapter 19. January 1st, 1917. My name is Black Zetsu, full name Aoi Tsutsuki Black Zetsu. There are 3 brothers in my family. The second oldest, Yamato, has a high sense of humor and is known in the neighborhood as the one who never laughs, is filial. They were the first to be born and enjoyed their mother's love, but they did not expect that when they grew up they would actually seal their mother. Black Zetsu wrote this and broke the pen in his hand because he was writing too hard. He shouted, "You BD White Zetsu, give me another pen." With a pen, Black Zetsu continued writing in his diary. Today, I will use the day my mother was sealed, which is also the day I was born, as the Kage calendar to commemorate her. Damn my brother, he is really not a good son. Fortunately, my mother was smart and gave birth to me when she was about to be sealed. Yes, I am Black Zetsu. I will shoulder the mission of breaking that damn seal and bring my mother back from the moon. As Heizetsu was writing, he looked up at the moon in the sky. The bright moonlight shone on Heizetsu's face, and he seemed to feel his mother's love. February 23rd, first year of the Kage calendar after sealing the mother, the eldest brother and the second brother branched out. The eldest brother lived on Earth, but the second brother he actually lived on the moon and threatened to look after their mother. He really deserved to die. The eldest brother is not a good person either. He travels around the world saying that he wants to atone for my mother's sins. What a joke. What sin could my mother have committed? He is a damn hypocrite. July 18th, 22nd year of the Kage calendar, my eldest sister-in-law gave birth. As smart as I am, I had long realized that my eldest nephew was gifted, and perhaps he could be the hope of saving my mother. So I encouraged my nephew to fall into darkness. Haha, it worked. In the end, the older nephew and the younger nephew became enemies. What a wonderful ending. January 12th, 23rd year of the Kage calendar. Haha, my nephew is getting stronger and stronger, and finally he has become a person who respects strength. Yes, that's right, it should be like this. Go ahead, nephew, and give my eldest brother a good slap in the face. January 13th, 23rd year of the Kage calendar. Why did the damn nephew suddenly become so powerful, just because of that ridiculous bond? No, that's not right, the plot shouldn't be like this. June 18th, 23rd year of the Kage calendar. Why, it was obvious that my nephew's eyes held hope for saving his mother. No, this can't be the case. My nephew shouldn't die like this. He must be used to save my mother. July 11th, 23rd year of the Kage calendar. Finally, I succeeded, hehe. My eldest nephew's soul has decided to fall into reincarnation. As long as I find his reincarnated body in the future, I will still have hope of saving my mother. Mom, please wait for me for a while, just a while. June 1st, 1200 Kagaya. Over such a long time, I have witnessed countless frictions between the reincarnations of my older nephew and my younger nephew. Just as they said before they died, one wanted to destroy the ninja world and the other wanted to stop his brother, but their potential was totally insufficient to save their mother. Until recently I finally found it. Madara. Uchiha Madara. He is so much like my nephew when he was little. It's ironic that a loving race like you can awaken your eyes if you tear the things you cherish to pieces. My foolish nephew, how far can your eyes see? March 3rd, 1211 Kagaya. Under my overall operation, 3 of Madara's 5 brothers died in the battle, but his eyes have not awakened yet. But I am not in a hurry. Since he did not awaken even in such intense pain, it seems that Madara's potential is beyond my imagination. Mom, I seem to have found hope of saving you. I miss you so much. March 6th, 1212 Kagaya. No, recently my nephew actually found a teacher. Why does the fox on that person's shoulder look so familiar? It seems to be Nine Tails. What went wrong? Natsume Tsukimi, Natsume Tsukimi, Natsume Tsukimi. Who are you? March 21st, 1212 Kagaya. Madara's Sharingan was still opened, and that cold chakra looked so familiar to me, he really looked like my eldest nephew. But I can be sure that the fox is indeed Nine Tails. I have to leave quickly. If Nine Tails senses me, my plan will be messed up. Now that Madara has opened his eyes, then hurry up and tamper with the contents of the stone tablet. Ha 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 ha, my stupid brother, I never thought that your efforts would become my wedding dress. April 6th, 1212 Kagaya. As expected, the Uchiha clan are exactly the same as my eldest nephew, all stubborn. Have they forgotten that there is a basement in the shrine? It's so full of dust that I'm choking on it. However, the stone tablet has been tampered with. Haha, he is really stupid not to know such powerful forbidden techniques as Izanami and Izanami recorded on the stone tablet. But mastering Izanami is enough for Uchiha to defeat the Senjo clan. After I came out, I thought I could take a rest, but Natsume Tsukimi actually sensed me and had Nine Tails use the tailed beast ball to hit me, 3 times in total. I almost died after 3 tailed beast balls. Mom, you will bless me, right? Mom, please wait for me for a while, I will definitely rescue you. Once that damn Natsume Tsukimi dies, I can save you. The scene changed to show that not long ago, Yumi had just fired 3 tailed beast balls and her right hand was broken. There were cracks of varying depths on her arm, although such an injury would only take Yumi a dozen seconds to recover. After all, Tsukimi's physical fitness is really abnormal. If Naruto had fired it with his bare hands, he could have cut off one of his arms without Sasuke's help. It seems that the tailed beast ball is not a move that a normal person can use. At this time, tribe leader Tiandeo, who was about to go out, just walked to the gate of the tribe, and saw a ball of light coming from far away and exploding not far from the tribe. The huge power made Tiandeo feel powerless. Tajima looked at the direction where the ball of light came from and was shocked. Isn't that the place where Madara and Izuna practiced? Could it be that he wanted to help the Senjo clan? Or did he know that I had offered a reward for him, so he gave me a warning? Just as Tajima was thinking, there was a violent fluctuation in the Senjo clan's territory. Tajima and Fuma were old rivals. After listening to the report of the family ninja, he could naturally guess that the other ninja was from the Senjo family, and his target was also the bounty Natsume Tsukimi. Uchiha Tajima, who had thought it through, quickly calmed down the confused clan members and immediately sent an elite ninja from the clan to withdraw the bounty on Natsume Tsukimi. Watching the family ninjas leave quickly, Tajima began to think in his heart. He had not guessed that Natsume Uejian actually had such a powerful intelligence network. As soon as he posted a bounty, he immediately used such a powerful ninjutsu to warn him. This ninjutsu was similar to the one released by the fox at that time. At this time, Tajima was not only shocked by Tsukimi's intelligence ability, but also became more curious about Tsukimi's strength, because he thought that the tailed beast ball was released by Nine Tails, not Tsukimi. After all, the amount of chakra required for this type of ninjutsu is simply impossible for humans to possess. The situation at Senju Buddha's side was similar. Yearn had no idea at this time that her test explosion experiment had inexplicably and cleverly solved a small problem for her. How strong is Yearn? Maybe we can try to persuade his fox to rebel. Tajima and Fujian pondered at the same time and whispered. Chapter 20. After a day of training, everyone was exhausted, especially when Tsukimi used the three-tailed beast balls at noon today. This gave everyone a clear understanding of Tsukimi's strength. The master's strength was definitely not weaker than 9 tails. When preparing to say goodbye, Yearn suddenly remembered a character, Uchiha Hikaru. As the strongest tool of the Uchiha clan, she is called nameless and is sealed in prison all day long. She is a very pitiful little girl. Thinking of this, Yearn called Madara and asked, Madara, does your family have a place like this to keep prisoners or enemies? Because she was afraid that there was no such thing as prison in this world, Yearn had to explain it. Guarding prisoners? It seems so. I remember that we had a prison in our house, where some family traitors and prisoners were imprisoned. Then can I go in and take a look? I'm quite curious about your prison. It's a bit difficult. The prison is usually guarded by at least 2 elite ninjas from the family. No one can enter the prison without my father's permission. Madara continued, but if master wants to go in, I can take you in when father is not at home. I'm sure the guards will be able to handle it. Yearn nodded and said, then I'll trouble you. A few days later, Madara reported to Yearn that Tajima was going to the battlefield. Tajima never expected that his original intention was to get news about Tsukimi through Madara, but now Madara has become Tsukimi's eyes. So the next day, Tsukimi asked Nine Tails to watch over Tobirama and Izuna and prevent them from fighting, while Madara took them to the Uchiha tribe. Soon after, Tsukimi saw the Uchiha clan's territory from afar. The first thing that caught her eye was the eye-catching clan emblem, a round fan pattern of red and white interwoven, quietly hanging above a tall building. It looked mysterious and solemn in the sunlight, as if silently telling the past. The tribal land is paved with stone slabs, which have become smooth due to the erosion of time and the trampling of countless tribesmen. On both sides of the road are quaint wooden houses with dark brown exterior walls and blue-gray roofs, carrying the charm of time. On the street, the Uchiha people walked hurriedly, wearing clothes embroidered with the clan emblem. After all, it was wartime and basically no one had time to rest. The square in the center of the clan territory is wide and flat, and is the gathering place of the Uchiha clan. The woods behind the square were quiet and deep. The silhouettes of the Uchiha people practicing were looming among the intertwined branches and leaves. The blazing light of the fire style flashed from time to time, and the crisp sounds of various metal ninja tools colliding were heard continuously. Master, the clan's land is ahead. The prison is right next to the shrine. There will be no one there except for those guarding and holding clan meetings. But we have to go around it. It will be troublesome if we are discovered. After saying that, the two of them went around to the front of the prison. All the people they might meet along the way were avoided by Yearn's powerful perception. At this time, Yumi sensed that in addition to the 2 guards at the door, there were 6 ninjas in the dark monitoring the surroundings. It seemed that the Uchiha clan was still very cautious. Tsukimi condensed 8 mini raised nan in her hand and waved her hand lightly. The raised nan flew out quickly and hit the necks of 8 people at the same time. Madara only heard the sound of something heavy falling to the ground. She turned around and saw that not only the 2 guards at the door had fallen, but also 6 people had fallen from the tree like dumplings. Madara was a little worried. After all, they were her own people, so she asked, Master, them. Yearn naturally knew what he was thinking, so she said, it's okay, he will wake up in 2.5 hours. After hearing this, Madara was no longer worried. He knew that his master knew what he was doing. If he said 2.5 hours, it would be 2.5 hours. Then he led Yearn into the prison. As for why Madara dared to bring Tsukimi into the prison, it was because the clansmen and prisoners guarding here had long been disabled, and all the intelligence that could be obtained had basically been interrogated. Even if Tsukimi released all the people here, it would not cause too much loss to the Uchiha clan. But what Madara didn't know was that there was a girl named Uchiha Hikaru in the Uchiha clan. After entering, Yearn found that Uchiha prison had only 1 floor, and she couldn't find Uchiha Hikari after searching for a long time. Yearn asked Madara, Madara, is this the only floor of your prison? Yes, after all, there are very few traitors and prisoners. Most of them are killed directly, and the prison is rarely used. This size is enough. Yearn was sure that she could not count on Madara at this time, as this kid probably didn't know anything about his own prison. At this time, Tsukimi suspects that the world she lives in may not be related to the game, so there is no such person as Uchiha Hikaru. Or maybe the light is sealed somewhere more secret, just as in the plot, it was Boruto who dug it out and allowed it to see the light of day again. At this time, Yearn sensed that something was wrong with the stone on the ground, so she walked over and punched it lightly, smashing the stone into powder. There was no impact on the surroundings, and there was not even much sound. Madara was impressed by the master's strong control. Suddenly Madara realized what his master was hitting. What was he hitting? A stone? There was a passage under the stone? There was space under the Uchiha clan's prison? Madara was full of questions at this moment. He felt that he was an outsider and his master was a member of the Uchiha clan. After seeing the passage, Yearn's perception was no longer hindered. It turned out that there were seals and barriers on the stone that could block the perception and prevent it from being detected. In other words, after a long time, the barriers became a little loose, and were discovered by players with abnormal perception like Yearn. The broken stones could no longer cover up the faint light. At this time, Yearn roughly studied the barriers and found that the barriers could actually change the flow of time. The effect was to slow down the flow of time inside the barriers, similar to how 1 day in prison is equivalent to 1,000 years in the outside world. Of course, it was not that exaggerated. After careful observation, Yumi discovered that these barriers were probably the work of the Senju clan. After all, the Senju clan was frightened by Uchiha Hikari, so they joined forces with the Sarutobi clan to seal Hikari while he was imprisoned. However, the Uchiha clan, who did not know much about sealing techniques, had no way to remove the seal. After a long time, people forgot about it. Now, after such a long time, the seal has loosened and was discovered by Yearn. If Yearn hadn't sensed it carefully several times, she would not have discovered this problem, and Uchiha Hikari would have almost lost the chance to gain freedom. After such a long time, there was finally a ray of light on the second floor of the dark prison. Outside the fence at the deepest part of the prison, a white wildflower was blooming. A pair of white hands reached out from the fence and gently stroked the small flower. It's so beautiful. When did you bloom here? Little flower, how long can you stay with me? It seemed as if a young girl was whispering inside the fence. When the dust settled, Yearn grabbed Madara by the back of the neck and jumped into the passage. After falling freely for more than 10 seconds, Yearn stood steadily on the ground. Madara was not afraid either, because he knew that the master would not hurt him, so he began to look around curiously. He also wanted to know why there was such a place underneath his own prison. Because it was too dark in the cell, Madara could only see things nearby and could not see anything in the distance. Seeing this, Yearn put Madara down. Yearn already knew through perception that the light was behind the iron fence directly in front of her. At this moment, Tsukimi is thinking about how to talk to Gwang so that Gwang will follow her willingly, because Tsukimi has only watched a little bit of the plot of Naruto, and she knows even less about the plot in the game like Naruto's mouth-to-mouth communication with Gwang. At this time, Yearn's divergent thinking expanded rapidly. From the Naruto biography, he suddenly thought of Naruto's heavy ion mode, which can burn his own life to make the attack have the effect of shortening life. Since his own vitality is infinite, can he do some fancy things? At this time, a voice filled with resentment and fear came. Who are you? Are you taking me out to kill people? Chapter 21. The cold voice frightened Madara, and when he reacted, he immediately became angry, thinking that this was the family dungeon, and that there must be people who were harmful to the family imprisoned inside. The tone was so resentful here, which showed that he was really unrepentant. Madara spoke up. Who are you to hold a grudge against our Uchiha clan? Yearn did not try to persuade the two idiots. She used her fire attribute chakra to light a stick she picked up from the ground, and the dungeon suddenly became much brighter. With the light, Madara could see everything clearly and found that there was a little girl about his age behind the fence, and she was also wearing Uchiha clan clothes. The girl is none other than Uchiha Hikaru, who was born in the early Warring States period. After her parents died during the war, she activated the Mangekyou Sharingan. Because her ability was too heaven-defying, she was regarded as a weapon by her tribe members and was named Wuming by them. Uchiha Hikaru's personality can be said to be bold in love and hate. Due to the brutal treatment of his clan members and the death of his parents, he now hates ninjas, the ninja world and the Uchiha clan. Because he possesses the eye technique of 8,000 spears, he is regarded as a weapon by his tribe members. He is also transplanted with other eye techniques to enhance his power. The transplanted eye techniques are Amaterasu and Tsukuyomi. The effect of the 8,000 spears is even more perverted. It can mark others, and then control the mind and chakra of any person regardless of distance, making the marked person act according to the caster's wishes. In battle, it can interfere with the enemy's actions and decisions, making the enemy work for one's own benefit, or causing the enemy to kill each other. With this effect, if Gwang is given the opportunity to grow, it won't be a problem for her to destroy the entire ninja world by herself. Afraid that she couldn't see it clearly, Madara kept walking forward, until she reached the fence and almost stepped on the wildflower, and then the little girl in the fence moved. Seeing her stand up, she pushed with both hands and pushed Madara, who was about to step on Zaiahua, away. Madara fell heavily to the ground. He had no time to react at such a fast speed. After standing up, Madara also became a little angry. I see that you are wearing the clothes of the Uchiha clan, so you must be a member of the Uchiha clan. As a criminal, you dare to take action here. Madara took it for granted that the girl in the prison was a member of the clan who had committed a crime. The girl said calmly, you almost stepped on Zaiahua. Madara laughed angrily and said, what kind of reason is this? Are you kidding me? Tsukimi reached out and patted Madara's shoulder, and Madara immediately quieted down. Just now, Madara was a little shocked because the girl was wearing Uchiha costume. He was so focused on thinking about the girl's identity that he forgot that Tsukimi was beside him. At this time, Madara guessed that the master's trip was probably to find this girl. After Madara quieted down, Tsukimi walked forward. The girl looked at the young man in front of her and saw that he had no clan emblem, so she said, you are not from the Uchiha clan, are you? Tsukimi shook her head. Because the Uchiha clan always wore clothes with the clan crest, with few exceptions, it was normal to ask this question. Can I ask you for a favor? The girl asked. Yearn said calmly, you tell me. Can you kill me? Then can you tell me your name? It will be my reward for killing you. My name? I don't have a name. You can call me Nameless. Madara was listening to the conversation between the two and was becoming more and more confused, so she interrupted and said, Uchiha? What a strange name. After hearing what Madara said, the girl became furious and said, shut up and don't give me that disgusting last name. Madara was stunned by the yelling at this moment. Hearing the girl scolding Uchiha, Madara couldn't help but get angry again. Yearn waved her hand and asked Madara to calm down. Madara also obeyed and went to a corner to sulk. Wuming doesn't sound like a good name. It doesn't matter, can you please kill me as soon as possible? Don't you want to live? The girl suddenly broke down and burst into tears, because there is no meaning in living. I am just a tool imprisoned here. No one needs me except for killing people. As she said that, the girl knelt down and reached out to tear off the wildflower that was blooming there firmly. Yearn immediately squatted down, held the girl's wrist and said, don't do this again. There is no meaning in life, but as long as you are alive, you may find something interesting. Just like you found this flower, just like I found you. The girl's shrill crying stopped, but tears as big as beans continued to slide down his face. Yearn said again, so do you want to go with me to see the light of the outside world? Although the girl was crying at this time, she still nodded firmly and hummed in a very aggrieved voice. After hearing the answer, Yumi pulled the card violently. The seal on it could not withstand Yumi's strength at all. Of course, Yumi used her super strength. Then Yearn put the girl on his shoulders, picked up Madara with one hand and left the second floor of the prison. Looking at the cave in front of him, Yearn was a little distressed. After all, he didn't want others to know the existence of light. If the Uchiha clan wanted to investigate such an obvious hole, they might be able to find it after looking through the family records. Just then, Yearn caught a glimpse of Guang looking at the place where she was imprisoned with hatred. Then he said, "Do you want to watch some fireworks?" Guang naturally didn't know what fireworks were, but he nodded blankly anyway, so Yearn asked Madara, "Madara, is this prison important to your family?" Madara replied, "It's just a prison, nothing important." "Okay, then I'm going to destroy this place." "Wait, master. What do you mean by destroyed? If it's really gone, I won't be able to explain to my father. I'll teach you another ninjutsu later, and I guarantee you'll be able to defeat Senju Hashirama." "Prison? Where is the prison?" "Master, go ahead and destroy it. I won't say anything even if you demolish the shrine today." Yearn was speechless when she saw the filial son in front of her. She then put the two of them on the ground and said, "You two better watch out." As Yearn said this, a blue ball of light appeared in her hand. Madara looked at it and scratched her head. "Isn't this the raised Nan?" But suddenly the ball of light gradually grew larger, even after Yearn jumped into the air, it continued to grow larger, and finally when the ball of light became larger than the entire dungeon, Yearn shouted, "Massive raised Nan." The huge raised Nan and the dungeon collided at the same time. The strong light and wind pressure prevented Madara from looking straight ahead. He could only tilt his head to look out. Suddenly, Madara found that the girl next to him seemed to be unaffected and was still staring ahead. The wind blew up the girl's hair, scattered the tears from her eyes, and gently moved Madara's heart. Madara looked at the girl and murmured in his heart, "How beautiful." While Madara was stunned, Yearn had already destroyed the prison. The guards and prisoners inside had been transferred by Yearn in advance, and only a deep pit was left in front of him. The girl was a little out of control at this moment, sobbing continuously. Yearn walked up to the girl, squatted down and said, "The fireworks are still pretty good." The girl nodded while crying, and at this moment the dark clouds in her heart disappeared like the prison. Yearn at this moment called out to the crying girl and the stunned Madara, "Let's go, go back, we can still have lunch if we go back now." Having said that, Yearn turned around and walked away, but before he could take a step, a small hand tugged at his sleeve. Yearn looked back curiously and found that it was the girl who pulled it. The girl looked up at Yearn and said, "Guang, my name is Guang." Yearn smiled and said, "Hikari? What a gentle name." Chapter 22. Izuna pushed Madara and said, "Go ahead, brother, didn't you make this lunch for a long time? Don't push me, can't I go?" Madara said as she went, but her body kept moving backwards. "Madara, you don't even have this little courage now. What qualifications do you have to work with me to create peace?" At this time, Hashirama said while watching the fun. "Shut up, you old bachelor, what do you know?" Madara's words were really heartbreaking. "Look, Hashirama has already started squatting on the ground and drawing circles. Humph, the Uchiha clan is inherently evil. You never hesitated when it came to killing people, but now this little thing has made you, the young clan leader, hesitate. It's so shameful." Tobirama said with his hands folded. After these years of getting along, Tobirama was finally able to speak a few normal words to the Uchiha people. "Tobirama, I'm telling you, don't provoke me, or I'll beat you up. I'm a man that even your brother can't beat. You are relying on the fact that your master taught you an extra move, massive raise Nan. Now ask who here doesn't know how to use it. If you don't defeat my brother once, what's the point of talking?" "Shut up Tobirama, do you want to practice with me?" Izuna said. "Come on, who's afraid of who? Let's see if your blind Sharingan can see through my multiple shadow clones." Tobirama retorted unyieldingly. Just looking at the four people jumping up and down like monkeys, Guang couldn't help but spit out a complaint, "Baka," then he scooped a bowl of porridge from the pot and handed it to Yearn, saying, "Master, it's time for breakfast." Or else you could say that the girl is considerate. Ever since Guang came to the small group and found that everyone was eating barbecue for every meal, she took over the task of cooking on her own initiative. However, Guang never gave the four of them a good look when he first arrived. Madara and Izuna were from her family who had always abused her, while Hashirama and Tobirama were from the Senju clan who had sealed her away. However, after a few years of contact, Hikari was able to talk to them. A lot has happened in the past few years. First up are the mission rewards. The second stage rewards for Hashirama and Madara, the 3 Megatama Sharingan and Wood-style bloodline limit, have already been obtained, and the third stage is, as expected, the Mangekyou Sharingan and the Sage Body. Izuna and Tobirama's first stage achievement has also been completed, so now Yumi is no longer just taught Raise Nan and super strength like before, Yumi knows all the B-level ninjutsu Genjutsu. The second stage rewards for the two were just as Yearn expected, all A-level ninjutsu and all A-level Genjutsu. During this period, Yearn not only triggered Guang's achievement task, but also got the first stage reward. Uchiha Hikaru, I've had enough of this dark life quest requirements, help Uchiha Guang establish a bond and find the meaning of life task completion rate, 34% stage reward, Chakra recovery speed increased tenfold. Maybe it's because of the 8,000 spears, all the rewards for light are related to Chakra. The rewards for the first stage may not be very important to others, but they are terribly powerful to Yumi. The reward for the first stage alone is that the clones no longer consume the Chakra of the original body. That is to say, no matter how many shadow clone or other types of clones Tsukimi creates, the amount of Chakra of each clone is the same as that of Tsukimi in normal state. Therefore, as long as Yearn splits out a shadow clone, it is equivalent to having one more of herself. It is really a one-to-one copy. Except for the fact that shadow clone is relatively fragile and disappears at the slightest touch, there is no other flaw. This reward is only useful for others, but it is a pure strategic skill for Yearn. Maybe the system has forgotten her current chakra amount and treated her as an ordinary person. As for the second stage reward, it is also very necessary for Yumi. After long-term training, Yumi's chakra recovery speed can only be considered exaggerated, so there is still a possibility of chakra exhaustion. But with this reward, Yearn's chakra recovery speed can officially enter the inhuman realm. From now on, Yearn will no longer have to worry about the problem of chakra depletion, because the consumption may not be as much as the recovery. Next is the progress of Tsukimi ninjutsu development. Over the past few years, Tsukimi discussed with Nine Tails and Tobirama, and finally realized the research on the effect of the heavy ion mode. At the same time, after Itama's modification, Tsukimi can now transfer vitality to team members through physical contact. At this time, Tsukimi is equivalent to an enhanced version of a walking medical kit. Even Yearn can directly forcefully infuse vitality into a person and kill him alive. The influx of a large amount of vitality will cause cells to proliferate disorderly, turning the person into a consciousnessless meatball. That's right, this effect was researched by Itama. Yearn didn't expect that the short-lived ghost she rescued was actually a scientific research genius, with scientific research potential that was definitely not inferior to Orochimaru, or even higher. Tsukimi was curious whether the Senjo clan's combat power was inversely proportional to their IQ. The most powerful Hashirama was actually a fool, while the weakest Itama had such high scientific research capabilities. Finally, it is about life. The biggest thing that happened in the past few years was that Uchiha Madara's iron tree blossomed and she actually fell in love with Uchiha Hikari. But it was extremely difficult for Madara to chase Hikari. On the one hand, there was hatred towards the Uchiha clan. On the other hand, Madara's first meeting with Hikari was not a pleasant one at all, so Hikari did not look at Madara well at the beginning. After Madara's unremitting efforts, Guang finally began to accept the first Uchiha person. Yes, this person was Uchiha Izuna. Of course, there is no bloody love triangle. Hikari treats Izuna as his younger brother. Maybe all the Uchiha people Hikari has ever met are cold to him. The first time he met such a naive Uchiha, Hikari didn't hate him that much. So Guang really liked to take care of this innocent boy, and unknowingly his hatred towards the Uchiha clan faded a little. Of course, Madara's efforts were not in vain, at least Guang was willing to talk to him. Madara's greatest effort in recent years has been to get Hikari to give up his hatred for Uchiha and accept the Uchiha name again. Nonsense, in the Hokage world, the wife takes the husband's surname. If you don't accept this surname, how can you get married? On the surface, Madara wanted Hikari to accept the Uchiha surname, but in reality, the abacus beads on this kid's face were about to fall off. Perhaps influenced by the inherent impression of the Uchiha clan, or perhaps because he was devastated by the war, Guang, who was annoyed by Madara, made a bet with Madara that as long as the Uchiha clan could end the war, he would be willing to accept this surname again. Madara was not discouraged after hearing this. After all, there was at least hope, right? Besides, he had been practicing for so long just to end the war, so Madara accepted it with pleasure. But even though she accepted it, Madara just stopped nagging about getting Hikari to reconcile with the Uchiha clan. However, she still cared about Hikari's life, bringing him lunchboxes from time to time, preparing new clothes for every season change, and even Tsukimi got an extra portion thanks to Hikari's kindness. Once when delivering food, Yearn complained to Madara, "You are just a pure sheep." Madara asked in confusion, "Fei Yanjiang? What kind of sheep is Fei Yanjiang? Is this what Master Guangyi wants to eat? If so, I will ask the family ninja to find this kind of sheep and try to let Master Guangyi eat it within 3 days." Tsukimi. But after a long time of companionship, Guang gradually got used to having a cheerful boy like Madara around him. Chapter 23. Looking at the young men in front of her who looked even older than herself, Tsukimi finally understood the joy of the training system. However, since they have reached adulthood, they have to consider the life and death of Izuna. Tsukimi is not sure whether Izuna will die at the hands of Tobirama this time. If we follow the original work, it should be Izuna's death anniversary recently. Now Tobirama has obtained the reward for the first stage, which means that Tobirama's hostility towards Uchiha is not as strong as before. But Yearn is still not sure whether this boy will kill, because Tobirama is too rational and he will not mix any emotional factors when making decisions. Thinking of this, Yearn was ready to take precautions. At this time, Madara came over, turned back every few steps, handed the lunchbox to Guang, and said shyly, "Master, Guang. This is the lunchbox I made, you can try it." Yearn knew that she would be a pure light bulb if she continued here, so she picked up her lunchbox and jumped onto the tree to eat it herself. Guang opened it and took a bite and said, "It's salty." "Ah, that shouldn't be the case. Last time you said the taste was a bit bland, so I added a little more seasoning. If I say it's salty, it's salty. Yes, yes, yes. I'll be more gentle next time. Madara, you don't have to worry about this. You might as well work hard on your training and achieve peace in the ninja world sooner. Then I will look up to you." "Hehe, no conflict, no conflict," Madara said while scratching his head with a smile. Guang rolled his eyes at Madara and called him a fool, then the two of them sat down and started chatting. Soon, they finished their lunch boxes. Madara was about to leave when Yearn called him. "Madara, when you get over there, call Izuna over. I have something to say to him." Madara didn't ask why. After agreeing, he turned around and called Izuna over. Looking at Izuna who looked so much like Sasuke, Tsukimi finally understood why Madara let Sasuke off so much. It turned out that he saw the shadow of his younger brother in Sasuke. "Master, what do you want from me?" Yearn nodded, and Guang consciously left the two of them and went to prepare breakfast for the other 3 people. "Izuna, how's your training going lately?" "Very good, Master. I have made great progress recently, especially after opening the Mangekyou. I feel like a fish in water when practicing." In the original story, Izuna started Mangekyou by killing his closest relatives in order to help his brother become the clan leader. But this life is different. This time, Izuna activates Mangekyou after witnessing the death of his relatives on the battlefield. As to whether this relative was Tajima, Yuejian didn't pay much attention to it. After opening his eyes, Izuna quickly assisted his brother in winning the position of clan leader. Although Madara now has a 3 Magatama Sharingan, his strength is even stronger than Izuna who opened Mangekyo. On the other hand, Hashirama also became the head of the family. The two clan heads wanted to try to end the war through an alliance, but they had just become clan heads at this time, and the decision to propose negotiations was not enough to convince the people. Even when Madara just proposed this decision at the clan meeting, some clan members were ready to react. If it weren't for Izuna's deterrence, some people would have been ready to take action against Madara. The Uchiha, who are now fighting in the meat grinder of the battlefield, have witnessed too many of their loved ones die tragically in front of them. This pain and subsequent hatred have caused several Mangekyo owners to have it. So when Madara proposed peace talks, several powerful Uchiha refused, and finally Madara had to cancel the proposal. The situation on the other side was similar. The two men had just become clan leaders and had no outstanding achievements, let alone a strong team or prestige. This result was the same as Yujian had expected. Don't be too proud too soon. Mangekyo. Sharingan is not as simple as you think. You just value Sharingan too much, which leads to all your efforts being directed towards using Sharingan better. Yujian continued, if your eyes were destroyed on the battlefield, it would be amazing if you could still display some of your strength. Yes, I understand, master. Seeing that Izuna didn't hear half of what she said, Tsukimi said that she could understand. After all, activating Mangekyo at least gave her the strength of a cage, which was a huge increase in strength. Okay, I know you didn't listen. If you really get careless and underestimate the enemy because of the Sharingan on the battlefield and end up dying in battle, it's none of my business. I've already reminded you. As she spoke, Tsukimi threw a coin into Izuna's hand. What is this, master? Izuna looked at the sky blue translucent coin and asked curiously. Don't worry about what this is. You must keep this coin close to you at all times. Whether you are going to the toilet, sleeping, or fighting, you must keep this coin close to you. Yes, master, I remember that. Izuna nodded seriously. After saying that, Tsukimi let Izuna leave. Looking at the stubborn guy walking away, Tsukimi really had no temper at all. After all, every Uchiha becomes a different person after opening Mangekyo. Tsukimi said that she could understand. Just wait, kid, you'll cry one day. Yuejian said. Looking at the panels of Izuna and Tobirama, Izuna's progress is 46%, which is very close to 50%. As for Tobirama, it is 27%, which can only be said that he is just beginning to be prepared to accept Uchiha. In the past few years, the two families have been at war. At this time, Madara and Hashirama, the patriarchs of the two families, were just fighting an exhibition match on the battlefield, but Izuna and Tobirama were really fighting, and both of them were seriously injured after each battle. Although Yujian did not allow others to borrow Nine Tails Chakra on the battlefield, it did not matter after the war. The injuries could be recovered quickly after treatment with Nine Tails Chakra. Actual combat is still the best way to make people progress. The progress of several people in the past few years can be said to be very high. After all, looking at the history of Hokage, the talents of these people are among the best. But ever since Izuna opened Mangekyo, Tobirama found that he seemed unable to defeat Izuna. Every time he made a move, he would be seen through by Izuna's Sharingan. The huge pressure prompted Tobirama to start looking for ways to break the situation. If my movements are so fast that the Sharingan cannot detect them, then is the Sharingan useless? With this idea in mind, Tobirama first tried the instant body movement technique. Although his speed was extremely fast, there were still traces and he could be captured by the Sharingan smoothly. So Tobirama began to ponder, if I had no trajectory but appeared directly across space, would the Sharingan still be able to see through my actions? Thus, the Flying Thunder God technique was born. This move has never been shown to anyone by Tobirama. This ninjutsu has been prepared for Izuna since its creation. At this moment, Tsukimi feels a little tired, worrying about them like an old father. At this time, Guang came over and rubbed Yujian's eyebrows. Looking at Yujian's face that had never changed, Guang was very envious. Which woman doesn't want to stay young forever? At this time, Yujian no longer thought about these troubles, and teased Guang, Guang, do you like this boy Madara? Who knew that Guang couldn't stand the teasing and her face turned red in an instant. She used all her strength to rub Yuejian's eyebrows. If someone else had used that huge force, their brain would have exploded, physically. Guang said incoherently, who likes him? Who would like an ugly and arrogant hedgehog head? Oh, really? I heard that the Uzumaki clan is planning to form a marriage alliance with the Uchiha clan, and the target of the marriage is Madara. What? Let's see who dares. As he said this, Guang even revealed his Mangekyo Sharingan, which showed that he was definitely not calm at the moment. Then, looking at Yuejian's half-smile, Guang realized that he was teased and said coquettishly, Master, you are teasing me again. After all, even if there is a marriage, it should be between the Senjo clan and the Uzumaki clan. Guang has always regarded Yuejian as her own father. Her biological parents gave her life, and Yuejian gave her the life, so Yuejian holds a very high position in Guang's heart. After making a joke, Yujian stared at Izuna who was bickering with Tobirama and asked, Hikari, what would you do if Tobirama killed Izuna? Hikaru said, that's impossible, master. Tobirama won't kill Izuna. After all, Guang actually regarded Tobirama as her younger brother. If possible, she really didn't want to see only one of them alive. Chapter 24. If possible, Guang hopes that Izuna and Tobirama can get along well, but family hatred makes the two stand on opposite sides all the time. Only when they meet at Tsukimi's place do they not have to fight. Master, with your strength you can easily end the war, right? Guang asked. Yes, I can end the war anytime I want. What about you, master? I can indeed end the war, but can I end the hatred in their hearts? Guang, let me ask you, even if I end the war, if I am gone one day, can they still maintain this false peace? Yujian continued, besides, the ninja world needs to develop. If I come forward to resolve the war, then the heroes who should be pushed by the wheel of history to resolve the war will not have the opportunity to grow. So as your master, I can teach you to be a hero who resolves the war, but I cannot be this hero myself. Just thinking about what Uchiha said, it is true that if the master resolved this war, then Madara and Hashirama would have fewer opportunities to grow. This war is the whetstone for the two of them. Although it is cruel, it is the fact. The master's behavior left the stage to Madara and Hashirama. From the master's words, one could tell that he had deep trust in the two of them. Of course, Guang didn't want to continue to wade into the muddy water of war. The war had already brought her too much pain, so she hoped to live away from war. Her hatred for war was also one of the reasons why she made a bet with Madara. If possible, she hoped that Uchiha Madara would resolve the war. Soon Nine Tails came jumping over. Tsukimi had asked Nine Tails to go and look for Black Zetsu's trace a long time ago. After becoming a living being, Nine Tails' strength in all aspects has been greatly improved. Currently, no one in the ninja world can do anything to it except Tsukimi. Black Zetsu is even worse. Apart from being a little bit sinister, there is nothing outstanding about his combat power. Looking at such a cute Nine Tails, Guang took Nine Tails into his arms, completely forgetting his previous worries, and said happily, "Ah, Teacher Nine, you are so cute. What are you talking about? What kind of words are you talking about? Guang girl, how can you say that to me?" Although Nine Tails said this, he still squinted his eyes in comfort because of the light rubbing against his face. Watching Nine Tails' increasingly deviant style, Yumi wonders if there are still normal people around her. After a while, Nine Tails also remembered the important business, jumped from Guang's arms to Yuejian's shoulders, and told Yuejian the intelligence he had collected in the past few years. Although Black Zetsu once swore that he would never leave the mountain until Yumi died. But Uchiha Madara really met his expectations, and it would take who knows how many years to wait until the next time someone who met such requirements appeared, so Black Zetsu broke his oath and made careful plans. After Black Zetsu's mayfly technique is performed, a very weak yearn attribute chakra will be left at the original location, which is difficult for normal people to perceive. However, Nine Tails is not a human. Strictly speaking, foxes are considered canines and are particularly good at tracking. Friends who often commit crimes know how important counter-reconnaissance is. After Yuejian's counter-reconnaissance teaching, Nine Tails cleaned up his traces very well, so Black Zetsu doesn't know that he is being tracked by the fox. The perception level of normal-tailed beasts is not enough to detect the chakra left by Black Zetsu, so Black Zetsu did not clean up this small trace, but Nine Tails is not a normal-tailed beast, and Black Zetsu could never have imagined that the tailed beasts could become living beings. After several years of investigation, every time Nine Tails smelled Black Zetsu chakra, they would mark it on the map. Over time, a distribution map of Black Zetsu appeared. Looking at the area with the most concentrated black spots, Yumi guessed that it should be the mountain cemetery. Although we have the most basic maps now, there is no unified map and the place names are very confusing, so Yuejian can only determine where this place is by finding the current location. Of course, this dilemma will disappear after the establishment of the 5 major countries. By then, the names of all the places on the official maps released by the 5 major countries will be basically the same as those in later generations, and Yuejian will not have to reversely infer the names. I am still very excited about the mountain cemetery Tsukimi. After all, there are too many experimental materials in it. Putting the boards in there will definitely be able to research out a lot of meaningful things. However, if you want to occupy the mountain cemetery, you must resolve the hidden danger of Black Zetsu. Currently, apart from sealing techniques and barriers, Tsukimi does not have many ways to restrain Black Zetsu. Again, I can beat it, but immune to death. Do I have to ask the Uzumaki clan for some sealing techniques? After thinking for a long time without any good solution, Tsukimi had to think of something that would make her happy. The first thing was that Nine Tails was back and she could move the fox. Who could understand the joy of a Furikon? Also, the Nine Tails reward has reached 73%, and you can unlock the truth-seeking ball by simply experiencing a major event. At this moment, Yuejian suddenly had an idea. Yes, truth-seeking ball, this thing should be able to kill Black Zetsu. In the original novel, Madara can only condense 9 truth-seeking balls, and the maximum control distance is about 70 meters. But there is no upper limit to Yuejian's concentration, and the limit control distance is Yuejian's perception distance. This is a bit scary. Yuejian's perception distance is now about 50 miles, but the farther the distance, the less clear the perception. But within 5 miles, the truth-seeking ball can still hit whatever it points to. If Yuejian waits for Black Zetsu to return home and uses the truth-seeking ball to surround the mountain cemetery, then Black Zetsu will be trapped, right? It sounds simple, but there are still many problems to be solved in actual operation. At this time, Yuejian thought that it had been a long time since she organized a 4-person sparring group. She happened to be free and wanted to see how the levels of the few people were recently. So Yuejian took Guang to the training place of the few people. Hearing that Yuejian would come to watch the sparring in person this time, several people also worked hard. You know, Yuejian seldom watched the confrontational training between the 4 of them, and everyone wanted Yuejian to see in person that he could sit on the throne of the number 1 among the disciples. The first match was between Uchiha Madara and Senju Hashirama. The two of them usually let off steam on the battlefield, but now they both became serious. Considering that Hashirama's taijutsu was better than his and his ninjutsu level was not much different from his own, Madara decided to adopt a roundabout tactic. He kept using shurikens and steel wires to narrow Hashirama's space for movement. Hashirama could see that, so he used the wood style to destroy the terrain that Madara had carefully arranged. The two of them fought back and forth fiercely. In the end, Madara's weakness was discovered by Hashirama, and in a flash, Hashirama placed a kunai on Madara's neck. "Madara, you lose," Hashirama said to Madara with a little pride. At this moment, Madara lowered her head with an extremely unwilling expression. Before Hashirama could be happy for long, Madara raised her head and said, "No, you lose, Hashi-lama." After saying this, Madara's kunai exploded into smoke, and a short sword climbed up Hashirama's neck. "What? It's actually my shadow clone technique. Damn, Madara actually copied my ninjutsu." Tobirama said in a low voice. Uchiha Madara wins. After Tsukimi announced the result, the two made the seal of reconciliation. In fact, Madara was able to win not only because of the shadow clone technique, but also because of the use of Sharingan. Madara knew clearly that Sharingan was not enough to make Hashirama fall into Genjutsu, so he used Sharingan to interfere with Hashirama's ability to distinguish. Although it was not as overbearing as Genjutsu, it was hard to defend against. But if the two of them fight each other, the winner will definitely be Hashirama. After all, the tyranny of the sage body is unreasonable. Hashirama can be stabbed countless times by Madara, but Madara can only be stabbed once by Hashirama. Therefore, Madara's victory this time can be said to be a combination of the right time, the right place and the right people, which will be difficult to replicate in the future. Next was the battle between Izuna and Tobirama. Izuna narrowly won because Tobirama did not use Flying Thunder God. Then it was the battle between Hashirama and Izuna. As expected, Izuna was hung up and beaten. In the end, Nine Tails fought against 4 people. Although Nine Tails won in the end, it was almost beaten down by the 4 people. This battle woke up Nine Tails, who had been relaxed for a long time. After a battle, Nine Tails' progress reached 75%, and Uchiha finally learned the truth-seeking ball. Chapter 25. While Tsukimi was testing the truth-seeking ball, Hashirama and the others started chatting. Tobirama and Izuna found this situation very strange. They might be fighting to the death on the battlefield in the last second, and the next second both sides could sit down and chat calmly in front of the master. Hashirama and Madara may not have a deep understanding of this situation. Since they became clan leaders, they rarely kill members of the opposing clan. However, Izuna and Tobirama are different. On the battlefield, as long as the ninja is from a hostile family, the two will not hold back. This is why the two felt wonderful. After all, this situation was unprecedented and would never happen again. In the past few years, the 4 people have never had a day off. As long as there is no war, they will come to Uegian to practice. The cruel war has forced everyone to have no time to stop. Soon a peaceful day passed, and the short-lived peace made Hashirama and Madara very addicted to it. Compared with the solemnity of their family land, they liked this place more. It seemed like a utopia that could make them forget that they were still in the war. And every time they returned to their tribe, the cold bodies of their tribesmen told them that the war was still going on. After saying goodbye to Tsukimi and Hikari, the few of them went home in pairs. Before Hashirama and Tobirama returned to their clan, a ninja came to report that it was time for the clan meeting tonight. During the Warring States period, all clans fought during the day, and if there was a clan meeting on that day, it could only be held at night. The two of them simply washed up, changed into loose tribal clothes, and walked to the shrine to preside over the tribal meeting. Most of the Senju people in the venue nodded respectfully and greeted Hashirama when they saw him. Wherever Hashirama walked to, the noise in the venue became a little quieter. Until Hashirama sat in the first seat, there was basically no noise in the venue. At this time, Tobirama shouted loudly, "Silence!" The whole venue was so quiet that you could hear a pin drop, so Hashirama began to preside over the meeting. For example, how many casualties have occurred in the family recently, how to arrange the pensions, the issue of wartime food reserves, etc. All of these things made Hashirama feel overwhelmed. Fortunately, most of these matters were handled by Tobirama, which saved Hashirama a lot of worries. Until the last part of the clan meeting, the pro-war faction of the Senju clan proposed to mobilize the entire clan to launch a surprise attack on the Uchiha clan. Hashirama could agree to other proposals, but he rejected this one on the spot. Of course, the war faction would not give up so easily, so they began to encourage their people to support the sneak attack by using the pain of war. Under the words of the war faction, most of the Senju people showed hatred on their faces. Until the leader of the pro-war faction shouted, "Kill," the entire venue was filled with shouts of killing. Hearing the uniform "kill, kill, kill," Hashirama had no choice but to agree to the sneak attack the next day. The next day, Madara and Hashirama met on the battlefield. They communicated with each other only through eye contact, and they both knew what had happened to each other. So they roared Madara and Hashirama respectively, and started a show match with much ado about nothing. On the other side of the battlefield, Izuna faced off against Tobirama. There was no greeting, no nonsense, and the two of them started using deadly moves when they met. Although the battle between Tobirama and Izuna was not as massive as that between Madara and Hashirama, the murderous intent that was about to solidify in them was incomparable to that of the other two. Tobirama took out a kunai from his ninja tool bag and stabbed at Izuna quickly. Izuna was not panicked at all when facing Tobirama's attack. He slightly turned sideways to avoid Tobirama's attack. At the same time, he used inertia to swing the long sword at his waist and stabbed at Tobirama. Tobirama turned around quickly and kicked Izuna's long sword, then flew into the air like a swift, shaking his hands slightly and throwing a few shurikens in the shape of a Chinese character for product, towards Izuna. Izuna sneered, and his Sharingan spun rapidly, easily seeing through Tobirama's attack trajectory. He kicked the hilt of the sword with his right foot, and the long sword quickly stabbed at Tobirama's flaw. Tobirama was startled and quickly dodged to the side, but his cheek was still scratched. Tobirama knew that he would surely lose if he continued like this, so he gritted his teeth, quickly formed seals with his hands, and performed water-style water barrier. A large amount of water instantly rushed towards Izuna, trying to block his vision and disrupt his Sharingan observation. However, Izuna flashed and easily jumped into the air, using the wind to perform the Great Fireball technique. The raging fire and the water flow collided rapidly, smoke spread, and the water vapor blocked Izuna's vision, causing him to lose the perspective of Tobirama. Izuna felt a little regretful at the moment. The wrong decision made him lose the advantage he had worked so hard to build. Without having time to think too much, Izuna immediately began to be alert to his surroundings. At this moment, a trace of determination flashed in Tobirama's eyes. He took out a few specially made kunai, injected chakra into them, and threw them at Izuna. Izuna, who was alert, immediately noticed the flying kunai. Such a simple attack was easily captured by Izuna's Sharingan. A mindless attack? Tobirama, curse yourself for not having a Sharingan. At this moment, Izuna immediately forgot the lesson he had just learned, and simply turned sideways, just avoiding Tobirama's attack. Then, when the kunao flew in front of Izuna, Izuna finally realized that there was chakra attached to the kunao. Izuna realized something was wrong, and just when he was about to dodge, he heard Tobirama roar, "Flying Thunder God Slash!" Perhaps it was because he had developed feelings for Izuna after such a long period of contact, or perhaps it was because he remembered Tsukimi's advice not to be carried away by the war. Tobirama's sword did not stab Izuna's vitals, but instead deviated about 2 centimeters below his heart. Just as the sword was about to pierce Izuna, a black hand suddenly emerged from the ground and slapped Tobirama's sword upwards. At this time, Tobirama had no time to retract the sword, and could only leave a flying thunder god mark on the black hand. After the black hand slapped the knife, it disappeared into the ground in an instant, and Tobirama's long sword actually pierced Izuna's heart steadily. Both Tobirama and Izuna noticed the strange arm, but at this time Izuna's heart was pierced, and this injury was fatal even for Madara. Izuna was seen spitting blood. Tobirama was standing behind Izuna, looking at him with complicated eyes. Madara, who was fighting, saw that his brother was so seriously injured and immediately jumped over to support Izuna. In the original novel, Izuna was stabbed but his injuries were not serious, so there was no doubt that he was alive, so Hashirama proposed peace talks to Madara on the spot. This time, seeing that Izuna was going to die, even Hashirama didn't have the face to speak. Madara hugged Izuna and said anxiously, "Izuna. Izuna. What happened to you? Izuna." At this time, Izuna spat out blood and whispered to Madara with all his strength, "Brother, lead the tribe to run away quickly, there is a trap, run. Find the master, there is an ambush." Before he could finish his words, Izuna lowered his head. Madara's pupils were wide open at this moment, and the 3 megatama in his eyes slowly shattered and recondensed into a gorgeous pattern. A cold temperament instantly spread. If someone observes carefully, they will find that the sky blue coin tied around Izuna's neck disappeared at some point. Huge sadness filled Madara's heart. He activated the Manjakaya Sharingan and quietly ordered his clansmen to take the wounded away from the battlefield. Just when the Senju clan wanted to continue attacking, they were stopped by Tobirama. Madara looked at Tobirama with murderous intent and said, "Why, Tobirama? Are you feeling sorry for me?" Tobirama shook his head. He knew that Madara would not listen to anything he said at this moment. Even if he said that Izuna's death was caused by a black arm underground, Madara would just not believe it. At this time, Madara held Izuna's body and said coldly, "We will see you tomorrow, Hashirama, Tobirama." If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel so you are notified of future uploads. You can find the next parts in the playlist visible on the screen or on my channel. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.